Hey guys, tonight we're setting sail for the roughest waters history has to offer. Not the Johnny Depp kind, not the treasure maps and parrots kind. I mean the real, actual pirates. Greasy, sunburnt, permanently hungry, bobbing around the oceans in splintery death traps. But tonight, we're not staying on the sea. Tonight, we're trading salt water for mud, cannon fire for rusted steel, and romantic legends for aching joints. Tonight, we're stepping into the cold, brutal reality of life as a medieval knight. So, before you get comfortable, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy these slow, honest journeys through history. And leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Somehow, it's always 2 a.m. somewhere, and 2 a.m. feels like the perfect time to rethink glamorous careers involving chainmail. Now, dim those lights. Switch on a fan for that soft, white noise hum. Imagine it as wind slipping through a drafty stone hall. Get comfortable, pull your blankets close, and maybe tuck your feet in. Not because imaginary rats are plotting anything tonight, but because medieval castles were cold, damp, and very bad at insulation. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever wondered what being a knight actually felt like? Not the shining armor and noble speeches, the real experience. The weight of metal pressing into your shoulders, the endless training that started in childhood, the hunger, the disease, the boredom, and the very real chance that your career would end suddenly and painfully. Tonight, with Sleepy Oogway as your guide, we'll walk through muddy camps, creaking barracks, and long nights spent waiting for battles that might never come, or might come far too soon. We'll see how knights lived day to day, how little comfort they had, and how much of their lives were shaped by duty rather than glory. There will be hardship. There will be exhaustion. And yes, there will be moments that are quietly absurd, because history is full of humans trying their best under truly uncomfortable conditions. So settle in. Let your breathing slow. Feel grateful for warmth, softness, and a bed that doesn't smell like wet leather. Now, let's begin our journey into the cold, brutal reality of life as a medieval knight, where legends fade and the human story quietly takes over. Chapter 1. The First Goodbye. The boy is only 7 years old. He stands at the base of towering castle gates, their gray stone walls rising high above him like a cliff of iron and shadow. Thick wooden doors reinforced with black iron studs loom ahead, scarred by age and weather. They do not open quickly. They do not welcome. They simply wait. He clutches a small bundle of clothes to his chest. It is tied with a simple cord, a spare tunic, worn stockings, nothing more. Everything he owns now fits in his arms. The linen tunic he wears is thin and plain, offering little warmth against the damp morning air. Mist curls low around his legs, drifting across the ground as if the earth itself is reluctant to watch what happens next. Behind him stand his parents. Their faces are already beginning to blur in the fog. His mother's hands are clasped tightly, as if holding herself together by force alone. His father stands straight, silent, knowing this moment cannot be delayed. Words have already been spoken, promises already made. There is nothing left to say that will soften what is coming. This is how the life of a medieval knight begins, not with armor, not with glory, but with separation. The boy looks back one last time. He memorizes their shapes, the curve of his mother's cloak, the familiar line of his father's shoulders. He does not cry loudly. He has already learned, somehow, that this is not the place for noise. His eyes sting, his throat tightens, but he remains still. The castle gate creaks open, a sound low and heavy, like stone grinding against time. A shadow spills outward from the opening, stretching across the ground toward him. A man waits just inside, a servant, perhaps a steward. Expression unreadable, already accustomed to scenes like this. The boy takes a small step forward. Cold air slips beneath his tunic. The mist thickens briefly, swallowing his parents from view. They do not wave. They do not call out. The silence is deliberate, a final lesson in endurance. Inside the castle walls, warmth will be scarce. He will rise before dawn. He will scrub floors until his hands ache. He will carry water, tend fires, clean armor that is not his. He will be spoken to sharply, corrected constantly, watched closely. Childhood will be shortened, reshaped into obedience and discipline. Play will be replaced with practice, comfort with command. This is training, not just of the body, but of the will. The boy steps fully through the gate now. The bundle presses awkwardly against his chest, suddenly heavier than before. Behind him, the doors begin to close. The sound echoes, final and absolute, sealing away the world he knew. The mist outside lingers only a moment longer. Then it disperses. Inside the castle, stone corridors stretch long and cold. Light filters through narrow windows high above, never reaching the floor. The air smells of damp wool, smoke, and iron. Voices echo distantly, carried along. Walls built to withstand siege, not comfort. This is not cruelty, it is preparation. Medieval knights were not shaped by battle alone. They were forged slowly, beginning with obedience learned too young, responsibilities carried too early. Strength was not given, it was demanded, day after day, without explanation. The boy adjusts his grip on the bundle. He does not know yet that years will pass before he sees his parents again. He does not know the weight of armor, the fear of battle, the ache of wounds that never fully heal. He only knows that he has crossed a threshold he cannot return from. The gates seal shut behind him. Outside, the mist lifts. Inside, the cold settles. And somewhere deep within the stone walls of the castle, the boy begins the long transformation from child to squire, from innocence to endurance, in a life that will demand everything before it ever offers honor. This is the first lesson of knighthood. Before the sword, before the shield, before the stories, there is loss. And it begins here, at the gate, with a small bundle, a final glance, and a childhood left quietly behind. Chapter 2: The Life of a Page, Scrubbing all the way to Knighthood. Hey guys, welcome to another soothing soiree of silliness and sleep. Tonight, we begin with something colder than your ex's heart, the chilly reality of being a medieval page. Picture this. You're a young lad, donned in a threadbare tunic that smells suspiciously of goats and last week's dinner, scrubbing the cold, stone floors of a dimly lit castle corridor. Why, you ask? Because destiny beckons. But for now, scrubbing it is. First, let's take a moment to appreciate how utterly absurd this sounds. Ever tried scrubbing your way out of a promotion? It's like cleaning a toilet expecting to be served breakfast in bed. But, alas, in the realm of knights and nobles, that's exactly where you find our pint-sized protagonist, on all fours, with a stiff brush as a tackle against the persistent mud and residues of days past. You've got to wonder, was this what you envisioned your life would be when you signed up for knighthood? The lord of the castle is high above you, sipping mead and bragging about his glorious conquests, while you wrestle with the remnants of horse dung that had the audacity to linger on the floor. How did this happen? Could it have been a fateful decision to not stick with that lucrative career as a professional sheep herder? The things you ponder while mopping. Let's talk about those boots, shall we? Heavy iron boots, glistening with an array of delightful gunk, sit nearby, waiting for their turn at the cleaning station. Ever owned a pair of shoes that were more of a liability than a luxury? Imagine wearing these medieval monstrosities. They're like trying to jog through a swamp while wearing brick-shaped weights on your feet. It's 1 part footwear, 2 parts medieval torture device. If only someone had whispered to you about the joys of wearing flip-flops instead. 40 times lighter, and nobody's going to step in excrement, right? But here you are, in the realm of, I stabbed a dragon yesterday, gone wrong. As you scrub away, your hands feel the eternal chill of the stone flooring, raw from the resistance of filth and the cold September breeze sneaking through the cracks in the castle walls, whispering secrets of long-gone warriors and cries of defeated guests who, perhaps, got a bit too close to the meat pies at a lavish banquet. And just between us, if you find a forgotten, crusty piece of bread while mopping, do not eat it. Trust me, unless you're aiming for an unscheduled visit to the village healer, best to leave it there, right along with last year's hopes for a promotion. Imagine the meals you look forward to at the end of your hard day. Do you crave roast peacock with a side of gilded carrot? Well, you'll get bread that resembles an old rock, and some porridge that may or may not actually contain oats. Meal prep could easily involve mixing rat droppings with limited edibles just to spice things up. Yum, right? Now let's talk about the ambiance. The flickering torches line the walls like mismatched candles at a sad birthday party. The light dances like it has no idea how tragic your reality is, illuminating the various musty corners where dust bunnies hold their little medieval production of the knights who say knee. Your imagination? It's a wild beast here, exactly the kind preferred by a poor page scrubbing floors. Sound echoes every time you bang the brush against the stone. The noise ricochets like a terrible tune you can't escape. Every scrape feels like a reminder of your current predicament, a less than glamorous introduction to knightly lore. You can't help but assume somewhere someone is jotting down your life story. Perhaps a noble troubadour is about to sing an epic ballad about the bold page of soggy floors. This song will never make the hit charts, mind you, more like top 10 reasons why you should have became a farmer. You hear distant laughter echoing from the great hall. What are they laughing about? The epic fail of Sir Yonder, who thought battling a dragon was the best way to win a lady's heart. Spoiler alert, it was not. Meanwhile, you're here, caught between the uneven stones and eternal grime. But the silver lining? Your life's a lot less messy than Sir Yonder's right now, while he's getting scolded for bringing back a half-roasted dragon tail instead of a heroic tale. And let's not forget the emotional turmoil of it all. Layers of inadequacy swirl around you each evening like a grand mulled wine gone wrong. Can you truly aspire to be a dashing knight when your daily grind involves a massive scrubathon for a muddy corridor? It's tragic, really. Not quite Shakespearean, but definitely dramatic enough to earn a pitying nod from the village bard. So as you scrub, the past and future merger into one vivid, absurd moment. A future of glory spins before you, but it's lined with hard work, mud, and the memories of all the past pages who came before you. Those poor souls who fought their own battles, knee-deep in filth, like glorified janitors hoping to scrub their way to knighthood. And then it hits you, like a thunderclap during a peasant's picnic. Maybe glory and grime aren't as far apart as you thought. And with that thought, the night continues on, deep in the medieval corridors of humor and hard work. One scrub at a time, one scrub. Chapter 3. The Joust of Little Knights, Sparring in the Courtyard. Hey guys, welcome back to another whimsical foray into the belly of the historical beast. Tonight, we plunge into something a bit more action-packed than your last workout session that involved jogging to the fridge. Picture this, a dirt courtyard filled with tiny warriors who are more likely to wield toy swords than actual steel, practicing their knightly moves while dodging every imaginable hazard from the world's stoutest clod of earth. Yes, that's right. Something flimsier than today's post-binge watching energy. Medieval boys engaging in a sparring match that's less about glory and more about embracing the inevitable bruises, much like trying salsa dancing for the first time after a 6-month Netflix binge. Now, let's visualize the scene together, shall we? The dirt beneath their feet is a mud pie waiting to happen. The air is thick with the musky scent of sweat mingling with the earthy aroma of, you guessed it, loose livestock droppings. Nothing says medieval training quite like the fragrant reminder that cows absolutely love to hang around human traffic. Attention, knights in training. Scented candles are now officially obsolete. Among these mini warriors, you spot one boy with a dark purple bruise blossoming on his forearm, reminiscent of an overripe plum that may have overstayed its welcome on the kitchen counter. Yet, this brave lad stands resolute, refusing to shed a tear beneath the steely gaze of their master, a man whose face suggests he's just come from a very spirited bout of sour milk tasting. His intense glare is enough to make even the bravest knight reconsider their life choices. Surely, his job just consists of shouting, "Once more!" while secretly thinking, "I should have stayed at home, petting my goats." Has training always been this way? You might ponder. Wouldn't it be markedly more enjoyable if someone brought out snacks instead of swordplay? Alas, you are dealing with the grim realities of medieval life. The closest this squad will get to a snack is if they stumbling upon a rogue apple left from last harvest. Should they find it, expect a fast-paced news bulletin to break loose. Sweetest find of the year, an accidental discovery in the grime. It's a real cliffhanger there. As the boys spar, their heavy wooden swords swing with all the grace of a poorly executed dance move at an end-of-year school recital. If you've ever seen a toddler throw a tantrum over a misplaced toy, you might be getting the gist of their technique. These swords look as if they were crafted in a particularly ill-tempered wood shop, one where the motto is clearly, "Go big or go home." Seriously, they slapped on the concept of weight training but forgot what weight actually meant for a child. While they're busy playing knights, a gust of wind swirls around them, whispering harsh critiques only the cold could deliver. "You call that a jab? My grandmom can swing better." And what's that noise? Oh yes, the sound of armor clanking as they engage. A beautiful symphony of juvenile enthusiasm and uncoordinated energy that rivals the worst ensemble you've ever heard. It's as if a flock of geese had collectively decided to take on ballroom dancing, but neither had the rhythm nor grace. In fact, one boy may have even just swung his sword so hard that he accidentally decimated a handful of daisies nearby. Sorry, Mother Nature, your flowers will have to wait for a nobler cause. But amidst the chaos, there's an unforgettable lesson unfolding. To be brave is to embrace the absurdity of life. You may tumble headfirst into the mud while miscalculating a lunge, as is the risk of aiming sword-like instruments without proper coordination. Yet you rise back up to face the absurdity again. The bruises may hurt, but embedded within that pain lies camaraderie and laughter, a little boy's version of warrior brotherhood. Occasionally, you'll catch one of the boys stealing a glance at the nearby barracks, where the adults are polishing their actual armor and looking very serious about their grown-up nightly responsibilities. You can almost hear whispered thoughts from the young squires. What sanctified sorcery lets them wear shiny helmets while we fend off dirt and old grass? It's a cruel twist of fate to be born a page in a world where real knights just sip their ale while you endure the chance of getting walloped on the head during a practice fight. Your thoughts meander, and you begin to wonder what these boys will feel when they grow up. Will they reflect on their childhood pursuits with nostalgia, reminiscent of the times they kicked dirt into their friends' faces during an impromptu jousting match that ultimately ended in a dog pile? Or will they boast to their comrades about the valor they exhibited while trying to master the fine art of balance atop their own too heavy wooden swords? Either way, one certainty stands. The memories shall forever be edgily humorous, just a tad sticky, and banquet-worthy to boast about around the village fire, assuming they survive the inevitable encounters with both wooden swords and curious cows. As the sun dips lower, casting shadows that dance across the courtyard, the laughter rises to meet it. Here in the heart of their makeshift battleground, the boys cling to their dreams of knighthood, facing life with all the courage they can muster. And of course, the universal challenge of figuring out just how to aim a stick without getting knocked in the noggin. As their joy swells louder than the clanging of discordant armor, you lie back in a soft haze of humor, realizing that these tiny knights are valiantly battling more than mere dirt. They're triumphing over the hilarities of life itself. So, sleep tight, fellow time traveler. Last we checked, a cold, brutal reality awaited. But honestly, you're dreaming of jousting and muddy battles instead. And isn't that worth a chuckle before you drift off? Chapter 4: The Frigid Dawn of the Page. Hey guys, welcome back to another cozy dive into the depths of history, where comfort is but a distant dream, and the cold realities are as frosty as a relationship with your ex. Tonight, we're getting a glimpse of life as a child page in the Middle Ages, specifically the very challenging mornings of cold, harsh reality that make you long for a heated blanket and a warm cup of cocoa. Today's setting? A drafty chapel that would make even the hardiest medieval peasant question their life choices. Imagine for a moment waking up at dawn, your breath manifesting as tiny clouds in the icy air, feeling every shiver of bone and sinew as you kneel on the freezing stone floor. Do you think you're resilient? Wake up at the ungodly hour of pre-sunrise, like being told you need to wake up for a 5 a.m. yoga class, only to find out that the mat is made of ice and there's a constant breeze that coldly laughs at you. Yikes. Now, how many of you have risen from bed only to find your house colder than a polar bear's toenails in winter? If you think your home is drafty because the front door doesn't close properly, try being a medieval page. And let's be honest, if you think washing your sheets once a month is a chore, imagine trying to shake out your straw mattress, laden with all the joys of livestock, dirt, bugs, and the occasional unhygienic surprise. So, grab your imaginary wool cloak and snuggle in. We're in the high medieval period, roughly between 1100 and 1500 AD, a time when kids like our young page here were sweating blood for their future knightly glory, even without a coffee maker or any semblance of hygiene to help them face the day. Yes, congratulations. You've just woken up on a cold, brutal morning in 1353, with the echoes of Latin scripture droning on like a really bad audio guide. The chapel is simply a stone whisperer of colder days ahead, cloaked in shadows, its drafty atmosphere a constant reminder that heating was just a wild card played by a king who forgot to pay his hearth tax. Instead, here you are, surrounded by solemn priests droning on about spiritual matters, while you question why you didn't score a spot in bed with the livestock instead. At least they had the sense to curl up together for warmth. As that old priest rattles on in Latin, somewhere between "Thou art the light" and "Are we done yet?", your eyelids weigh more than the collective ambitions of every knight in the kingdom. But you must endure. The reverberating prayers sound like an orchestra of ancient frogs croaking in unison. And you, dear listener, can't help but wonder, is this monk really making a case for why I need to pay more attention to my homework? Or just enjoying the sound of his own voice? Suddenly, the smell wafting through the chapel informs you that breakfast, if you can even call it that, is probably a sad clump of porridge that somehow survived the night. It's less porridge and more of a medieval science experiment gone horribly wrong. Can you imagine breakfast that wasn't just sad mush, but a colossal letdown, like expecting waffles and receiving, well, wet cardboard? Do you look at hot, fresh breakfast today and think to yourself, ah yes, this is definitely what I have missed most in my past life as a medieval child page? You glance around, trying not to nod off as the priests rattle on with prayers about hope, glory, and sacrifices. All you can think about is your hands, frozen appendages that might actually be more useful as paperweights than for wielding a sword someday. How were you ever going to defend your honor if you could hardly keep warm long enough to hold up a cup of lukewarm water? But fret not. Every freezing kneel on that chapel floor comes with the promise that someday, maybe, you'll become that gallant knight you've dreamed of being. What will it be, you think? A life of valiant battles, treasure hunts, and rescuing damsels. Or just cold stone floors and excessive porridge. Oh dear, the choices weigh you down as much as a suit of armor at this hour. Now let's take a moment to appreciate the audacity of the medieval schedule. You wake up before the sun, expecting a heartwarming moment of serene enlightenment, only to get a frostbite contest instead. Have you ever tried to get out of bed at 6 a.m. only to discover your body is suckered by the gravitational forces of your bed? Multiply that feeling by 100, and you have the general emotional state of our medieval friend here, questioning every decision that led to this moment. As the priest's voice drifts into the distance, you're left with a choice. Drop your head and drift into dreams of chivalry, or somehow manage to stay upright on your freezing stone niche while pretending that a life of knightly valor awaits. It's the world's most ridiculous expectation, set against the backdrop of a cold stone. Chapel, a battle fought every morning, long before any knight ever lined up for a joust. So as your eyelids grow heavier and the chill seeps further into your bones, remember this little lesson of life. Cold chapel floors may lead to warm, nightly dreams, always saving room for a chuckle. After all, for every knight juggling bravery and righteousness, there's a page somewhere questioning the wisdom of attempting valor while sitting in a frost as cooling as old milk. Sleep tight, brave knight. Sweet dreams await, where heavy armor is replaced with warm blankets and hearty meals, but only after this frigid morning of harsh reality. Rest now, and don't let the cold win. Chapter 5. The Silent Page. Hey guys, welcome back to another cozy dive into the depths of history, where the grand halls echo with the sounds of feasting and a young page's dreams drift silently amid the chaos. Tonight, we'll peek into the fascinatingly cold, brutally honest reality of life as a medieval knight in training, something more absurd than your wildest daydreams, and yet equally relatable to your own stressful workday. Imagine walking in a grand hall, decked in stone and tapestries, where the air is thick with the tantalizing aroma of roasted meat, a smell so rich it could convince a starving saint to contemplate devouring a whole cow. Behind the scenes, our young page, a mere wisp of a lad, stands stoically, balancing a heavy silver platter laden with the feast of kings. This isn't just any routine duty. Oh no, dear listener, it's a high-wire act worthy of the circus. As you settle in, grab your imaginary goblet of mead, and let's ponder some very serious questions. Have you ever found yourself in a room full of lively people, only to feel as invisible as the last slice of pizza at a gathering? What if your job description included standing stock still while your coworkers indulged in raucous laughter and melodious merriment, while you secretly prayed for the meat to not slip from your platter and take a dive onto the floor? Tonight, you, as our young page, are in the grand hall of a noble lord, amidst a cacophony of feasting noblemen clad in colorful silks that make rainbows look drab. Can you even imagine a worse fate than being treated like a human coat rack while your stomach growls louder than a medieval knight's battle cry? Alas, the irony is palpable. You're caught in a delightful chaos that feels like a wild dream one wishes to escape. Yet here you are, your fate intertwined with roasted meats and boisterous laughter. So picture this. The noblemen are indulging in platters of roasted meats, a feast worthy of legends. Legs of lamb leap across the table like they're competing in an Olympic sprint, while wine flows like it's trying to impress the queen of the grapevine. Every piece of silverware chimes like an enthusiastic orchestra, where every shout and cheer festively punctuates the air, while you stand still as a statue, praying that the platter doesn't give way to the laws of gravity. Let's take a moment to reflect on your position. You are encased in a world that feels simultaneously luxurious and absurdly unkind. How can one be surrounded by such opulence, yet feel as though they are a singleton at a speed dating event, forever out of luck? You might be the most underappreciated form of chivalry, the unofficial meat holder of the feasting lords. Congratulations, noble listener. You're the unsung hero of the banquet. Ever wondered how it feels to balance a heavy silver platter while watching your dreams of knighthood slip further and further away? Well, you're about to find out. Your biceps burn with the intensity of an iron forge, while those noblemen guzzle wine without a care in the world, each laugh ringing louder than the last, drowning out the chorus of desperate prayers spilling from your lips. You shift your posture slightly, an awkward endeavor that feels akin to trying to release a trapped fart in a very quiet elevator. But alas, here's where humor meets horror. Should you accidentally drop that platter, it would not only send the feast cascading like a medieval domino effect, but would also have you dodging food scraps like a knight avoiding arrows. The horror, the shame, the fervent prayer of non-existent gods. Unsurprisingly, your duties as a page extend beyond mere platter bearing. You must also monitor the noblemen's consumption. After all, they have very stringent ideas about sharing their banquet with the likes of you. Almost like sharing opinions at a family reunion, awkward and reluctantly accepted. Will anyone think twice about tossing you a morsel or two? The odds are as slim as your chances of facing off against a dragon without a sword. And, lest we forget the peculiar joy of standing among nobles who are less like regal beings and more akin to greedy crows with an insatiable appetite. One glance at their greasy fingers perilously reaching for the next drumstick, and you can almost hear the echo of your ambitions flailing amid the laughter. It's like being at a buffet and realizing you forgot your wallet. Unfortunately, this knack for being unnoticed and underutilized was rather common for young pages. As you struggle to remain upright, you hear snippets of heroic tales, narrated in exaggerated tones meant to inspire. Are they going on about the dragon-slaying knight? Oh, my dear page, dream on. You wonder aloud, do they even recall the last time they fought over a last piece of meat, like it was a dragon's head? Because that would require valor, and you could use a medal for your efforts in this grand game of hunger. But through this chaotic merriment, there's a warmth, a somewhat cruel yet endearing camaraderie. For while you hold steadfast, vaguely planning your great escape to the next batch of roasted meat, your fate may be sealed, waiting for appreciation as fleeting as a passing breeze in a drafty castle. So sleep now, dear dreamer, and let the absurdities of the medieval feast rest in the comfortable shadows of your mind. The hall may echo with raucous laughter, but find solace knowing that behind every carefree nobleman devouring his third mutton leg is a page, enduring it all with grace, humor, and bravely questionable balance on a long silver platter. Sweet dreams await where laughter mingles with warmth, and everyone feasts happily. Or, at least, until you wake up just in time to resume your duties once more. Chapter 6. The Armory of Despair. Hey guys, welcome back to another restful little journey through history, where the clanking of armor sounds like a wardrobe malfunction waiting to happen. Tonight, we dive into the world of our young squire, a 14-year-old lad living life under the suffocating weight of metal. A weight mirrored only by the existential dread of the responsibilities he's not yet ready for. Imagine the scene. A small, dimly lit armory smelling so strongly of oil, vinegar, and, let's be honest, old sweat, that fainting from the stench seems like a legitimate battle tactic. If you think modern-day locker rooms are bad, just wait until you get a whiff of medieval masculinity in all its glory. So grab your imaginary nose plug and prepare to discover the delights of what it means to be a squire, sans the glamorous reputation of knighthood. Now, have you ever wondered what it's like to wear armor that's about as comfortable as being hugged by a bear in a sauna? Or how about trying to be competent in your job when the stressful reality is that you're actually just one mismanaged leather strap away from disaster? And what on earth does the phrase "sweaty iron womb" even mean in the context of a career? As we proceed, imagine yourself standing in this cramped armory, surrounded by armor pieces that clink like the contents of a poor man's piggy bank. This is your moment of glory, albeit one that could easily end in humiliation with a misstep or a rogue leather strap that has suddenly decided to rebel. Congratulations, dear listener. You've just woken up in the year 1385, where Bring Your Son to Work Day is less about bonding and more about weaponizing familial expectations. So picture yourself. You are a squire, an apprentice, if you will, standing there like a deer in the headlights, armed with nothing but nerves and an armful of heavy steel. Your job? To help a battle-scarred knight who, let's be honest, looks like he survived a particularly nasty encounter with a hedge trimmer on a bad day. You fumble with the intricate leather straps of his breastplate, adorning it like it's the crown jewels, while the knight observes your efforts as closely as a hawk watching an unsuspecting mouse. As you struggle to tighten the leather straps, which seem to be perpetually just a smidge too short or a touch too long, you wonder if there's a secret code to these fastenings. The smell of oil lingers like an unwelcome guest, while vinegar adds a hint of crispness, making you wonder if the entire place was once a culinary experiment gone wrong. It's a delightful cocktail of scents that could easily be a perfume for the next medieval Renaissance fair. Eau de Armory, for the man who's as inviting as he is stinky. You tug at the straps, feeling a certain kinship with the casing of meat wrapped inside. After all, who doesn't feel like a roast turkey when trying on armor? The knight, meanwhile, grunts in, encouragement that sounds more like a bear waking up from hibernation than a seasoned warrior ready to head into battle. Your heart races as you grapple with the knight's immense shoulder guards, their metallic edges nipping at your fingers like an overly affectionate puppy. Feel that? That's the sweet sound of impending injury. You're one awkward move away from getting stabbed with his own elbow. Ever tried to adjust a friend's medieval hand-me-down while they're still wearing it? Each maneuver is a risky gambit, and you could easily end up with a knee in the gut. If this were a game show, the name of the round would be, Guess Which Body Part is Next to be Crushed by Armor. Just tighten it a little more, he urges, which sounds innocent enough until you realize he's asking you to wrestle with the very essence of metal and human vanity. You think to yourself, if only there were a squire training manual, how to avoid losing limbs while assisting in battles. But here's the kicker. Moments like these make you reconsider your life choices. It's like signing up for an evening ballet class only to discover it's an intense wrestling match with an unyielding partner who thinks he's destined to be the next king. Your fingers fumble, the knight's armor clinks ominously, and panic washes over you like a knee-deep puddle you didn't see coming. With beadlets of sweat forming on your brow, your mind races through desperately absurd scenarios. What if you were destined not to be a knight, but just an enthusiastic squire with the aptitude of a doorstop? Or what if the knights were really just overgrown toddlers in shiny costumes, waiting for someone to give them a snack before they get cranky? At last, with a haphazard tug, you manage to fasten the last strap. The knight takes a deep breath as you back away cautiously, prepare to dodge if he has taken too deep a breath and turns into an unwieldy beast at any moment. Tension floats in the air like a comically large balloon waiting to pop. And, surprise, surprise, it does. His metal obsidian armor clanks into place just as he spins around, and that's when it happens. Yep. You step back, right onto the biggest barrel of armor grease, sending it rolling like a chariot of misfortune as you both crash into a heap of loud, clanking metal and heavy breathing. And in that chaotic mix, like a parade gone off course, there's a shared chuckle. It's wild, unexpected, and brings forth a sense of relief that, despite the clattering mess, camaraderie is born in the most absurd of situations, even amidst the cold, brutal reality of life as a medieval knight. So, nestle into your blankets, dear listener. Just remember, in the quest for knighthood and respect among armor and sweat, there's a healthy dose of absurdity lurking just around the corner. The armor might be heavy, the tasks tedious. But every misstep is merely another story waiting to be written, preferably not on the floor of the armory. Chapter 7. The Squire's Tug of War. Hey guys, welcome back for another dreamy romp through history, where we discover that chivalry is often just another term for let's see how much suffering we can fit into a single day. Tonight, we find ourselves face to face with something more chaotic than the returns line at an after-Christmas sale. Life as a young squire, a 14-year-old braving the wild and muddy world of medieval horse wrangling. Now, picture this. You've just stepped into your worst nightmare, a muddy yard that could only be described as a medieval slip and slide with, let's say, slightly less fun and a lot more horse manure. There you stand, gripping the reins of a muscle-bound warhorse whose idea of fun might include rearing up at the slightest flash of a squirrel. The beast towers over you, its eyes wide and nostrils flaring, as if asking, "What am I, your personal chariot or your worst enemy?" Imagine your fingers wrapped around those reins, doing their best to avoid becoming a medieval version of a wet noodle. You cling to them like they're the last life vest on a sinking pirate ship. The horse, on the other hand, seems to think it's auditioning for a role in Dancing with the Stars. It snorts, stomps, and rears like it just downed a bucket of double espresso. You barely manage to keep your balance, feeling a sensational mix of adrenaline and utter terror. Ever found yourself in a chaotic line at a coffee shop, praying that the person in front of you doesn't drop their tray all over your shoes? Now, multiply that feeling by about 10, and sprinkle in a hefty dose of equine panic. No pressure. As the horse rears up, you're struck with the absurdity of the situation. Just a moment ago, you thought you were destined to be a noble knight, perhaps rescuing damsels or slaying dragons. Instead, you find yourself engaged in a wrestling match with an animal that would gleefully toss you like a rag doll if given half a chance. A little more control, please, you firmly tell yourself. But between the snorting and your trembling knees, it feels more like struggling to manage a 1,000-pound toddler having a tantrum. Perhaps you should have started with something easier, like a goat. One that's already panicked is a solid first step in the future knight training program, right? You take a deep breath, and with all the confidence you can muster, you pull back on the reins. Instead of calming, the beast erupts into a whirlwind of hooves and hair, determined to prove that you are, in fact, the main course in tonight's dinner plans. And then, just when you think you've reached the peak of absurdity, you catch the sweet scent of fresh mud mixed with something distinctly foul. Ah yes, a delightful homage to the countless times the village's livestock has opted for your charming yard as their personal restroom. Because, of course, what's horseplay without a side of, let's say, organic fertilizer? But you're not just a squire. You're the hopeful knight-to-be, even if right now it feels more like you're auditioning for a role in a slapstick comedy. Have you ever tried to tame a sneaker-clad toddler? That's what it feels like, minus the adorable giggles and with much more drool. Your heart races as you picture that one fateful day when you slip on a banana peel and somehow orchestrate a disastrous tumble straight into the nearest livestock pen. But you push that thought aside. Today is not about embarrassing tumbles. No, it's about taming this mighty creature in a pit of mud. A fight against cuts and bruises, and oh so very likely a foot in the jaw. Deep down, you picture the knight you one day will be, charging into battle atop your horse, validated and strong. But as of today, you're essentially stuck in Horseback Riding 101. And that course doesn't even include the chapter on not becoming horse chow. What if? You ponder aloud, to no one in particular. This horse has plans for me involving a deep mud bath and an unfortunate delivery to the village as a muddy relic. These thoughts whirl in your mind, invoking absurd images of your proud parents being told, "Yes, your boy is destined for greatness," unless the horse decides to run him over first. Reeling from your laughter and anxiety, you manage to calm the creature just a tad. The warhorse, sensing that perhaps you are not just a tiny screaming sack of nerves, but a squire with dreams that need some moderation, settles down just long enough for you to breathe. It's a minor victory in a world ruled by the devastating dichotomy of awkward situations and earned respect. The air is thick with the smell of wet earth mixed with a hint of victory, or as close to victory as it gets when half your armor is stuck in a puddle. You can hear the distant laughter of the knights watching you, their chuckles mingling with the clip-clop of their own battle-ready steeds, who are undoubtedly judging your every move. As you wrestle with thoughts of becoming either a brave knight or a muddied spectacle, one thing rings clear in the cacophony of laughter and snorts. Sometimes the path to knighthood is paved with the mud you wrestle with, not just on your feet, but in your very heart. And if you can laugh about it while your dreams remain intact, well then, that's a win in anyone's book. So, nestle into your blankets, dear listener, and imagine the warm glow of camaraderie brightening the densest of mud. Remember, in the quest for knighthood, you might just find that the toughness lies in the soft silliness of the struggles, and perhaps that is the heart of the adventure after all. Chapter 8. The Squire's Midnight Scrub. Hey guys, welcome back to our dreamy historical adventure that's so cozy you might mistake it for your grandma's knitting circle, minus the actual knitting. Tonight, we step into the chilly depths of a medieval armory, where dim oil lamps flicker like they're auditioning for a horror movie. You'll want to keep your blankets close, because it's about to get colder than a witch's cold sore in January. Picture this. You've just fallen into a world where Netflix and chill translates to anxiety and armor. Yes, congratulations. You've woken up in the high medieval period, where squires spend their nights battling rust, grease, and the ever-looming question of whether their gauntlet will still fit after another 4-pound turkey dinner. Speaking of which, do you ever find yourself scrubbing a pot that's seen better days? And by better days, I mean the last time it was used for a meal you weren't afraid to mention at a fancy dinner? What would life be like if you had to polish your cutlery with the same intensity as a knight cleaning his armor? Should you be aiming for glimmering knight or rusty relic in the sword and squire aesthetic? Now, let's tumble into our tale of Sir Scrubs-a-lot, the squire wrestling with a gauntlet that looks like it survived a fluffy poodle parade. The moon is the only witness to his struggle, casting shadows that dance across the armory walls, making it feel slightly more like a ghost story than a noble endeavor. You hear him muttering to himself, "They'll never take me alive," or with dirty armor, "This gauntlet has seen more action than a blockbuster film, and no one remembers the supporting cast." Plopping down onto the cold stone floor of the armory, you take a moment to really appreciate the ambiance. The metallic scent of rust mingling with the pungent smell of oiled leather and something suspiciously reminiscent of old cheese. If you think your friend's gym bag smells bad after a workout, well, you haven't encountered medieval armor post-battle. It's like a locker room where someone tried to pickle the air with sweat. As the squire scrubs vigorously, he begins to question everything. Is it worth it? Am I destined for knightly glory? Or just armored mediocrity? The gauntlet slips from his hands, tumbling down to the floor with a clatter that echoes like a bell in a silent chapel. This is not just hardware, it's a metaphor for life. Rusty, heavy, and constantly asking for more work, much like your last relationship. Seeds of doubt take root in his mind. What if he spends all this time polishing armor and never gets a chance to wear it? Nights spent in the glow of flickering lights, dreaming about slaying dragons, while his most fearsome foe is that stubborn spot on the gauntlet that refuses to budge. At this moment, you can't help but feel a little sympathy. After all, who among us hasn't faced the relentless grind of a cleaning task that seems to last an eternity? But let's get back to our brave squire, who's not just any squire. Oh no. He's the squire who gets to watch knights clatter about in all their shiny, well-polished glory as he stands there looking like a damp sponge in comparison. Each swipe of the rag is imbued with the defiance of a young man convinced that one day people will understand that he scrubs with the heart of a true warrior. Just imagine, a world where squire or not, if you don't land that night gig, you're stuck cleaning armor for the rest of your life. It's like studying mechanical engineering only to end up becoming a professional janitor. Not that there's anything wrong with janitorial duties, but one just hopes for a hint of chivalry in the mix, right? Okay, let's turn our gaze back to our earnest squire, who's now staring down a particularly crusty piece of armor as if it committed some personal offense against him. His thoughts zip around. Will I really fight glorious battles? Or am I just destined to unrealistically scrub off the remnants of, was that last week's battle against mold? It's the medieval equivalent of wondering if you'll ever get that parking space at the supermarket. As he wipes away the grime, the memories of battles come flooding back. Except there's one little detail he'd rather forget. He's usually been the one dropping the sword in those battle scenarios. You can almost see him on the battlefield, flailing about like a windmill gone rogue. It's a visual as spectacular as it sounds. Even the other knights seem entertained as they prepare for their grand escapades. Picture them, armor shining like stars at night, sharing tales of valor, while our squire clinks and clanks in the background, polishing armor and wishing he could spill heroic secrets rather than grease stains. But no, there's a lesson wrapped in all this as he stands in the heart of that dimly lit armory, surrounded by rusty armor, discarded rags, and glittering dreams. As tired as he may be, it's also a moment of joy, because underneath the grime and the grind, he's one step closer to that shiny dream of knighthood, even if it means giggling with himself about being known as the one who tried. So, dear listener, while our squire battles the relentless tide of rust and nerve, take a deep breath. You too are polishing away life's nagging worries, just like he is, perhaps armed with only a dishcloth and a hopeful heart. If there's one thing to remember, it's that sometimes life's greatest victories are indeed soaked in absurdity, especially when your biggest challenge is staying upright in an armory. As the shadows dance around him, he realizes it's not just about the polish, it's about the stories behind the armor, and that all-important acceptance of his muddled scrub suit identity. And just like that, you might feel a comforting sense of kinship with this young squire, lost in the absurdity of the medieval grind, but scrubbing away fear, one gauntlet at a time. Chapter 9. The Squire's Grimy Odyssey. Hey guys, welcome back to our cozy corner of the historical universe. Tonight, we're taking a detour more treacherous than your uncle's favorite bathroom novel. We find ourselves in the neutral zone between valor and questionable hygiene, specifically on a muddy battlefield in high medieval times. Picture this. It's like a dance floor where everyone's wearing boots but forgot to take a shower for weeks. Trust me, you'll want to keep those blankets tight, because it's about to get messier than a toddler in a spaghetti factory. Now, imagine this. As you nestle into your comfy lair, think about the following questions. Have you ever wondered what it's like to drag a fully armored knight across a battlefield, stuck in mud that's more goo than earth? Do you think being a squire resembles being a glorified Uber driver, only your passenger is weighed down with a ton of shimmering metal? And can you even imagine trying to explain your muddy boots to your medieval landlady when you get home? Spoiler alert, there's no Yelp review strong enough for that. Congratulations, you've just awakened in the year 1390, right smack in the middle of a battlefield where knights are clanking around like an oversized can of soup on a bumpy road. The sky is gray and menacing, and arrows are sailing through the air like the world's least helpful Uber Eats orders. So, let's venture forth into the enduring chaos of this muddy disaster. Picture yourself as a hopeful squire, and not just any squire, but you, dragging your knight, Sir Gritty Pants, who's encased in more armor than a medieval Lego figure. He sprawled out on the ground, gloriously oblivious to your struggles, while you put in more effort than a college kid trying to finish a term paper the night before. The mud is thick, more suited for growing unhealthy amounts of potatoes than letting a knight make a graceful exit. Every step you take feels like a workout routine designed by an evil overlord. As you hoist Sir Gritty Pants up, you wonder if his armor weighs more than your whole life, or if maybe he skipped leg day for the last decade. You catch a whiff of an earthy scent that is mostly mud, with just a hint of sweat and despair. Sort of like a bag of socks left in the gym locker way too long. And speaking of smells, let's not forget those medieval nights. Imagine if someone tried to recreate a medieval musk, a blend of unwashed armor, defeated dreams, and last night's questionable stew. It's enough to make anyone reconsider their life choices, particularly yours as a squire. Your attempt at chivalry is basically outlined by your need to breathe clean air. But here's the kicker. The knight is slipping back into the wet, viscous embrace of despair. Again. You really start to examine your life as the knight groans beneath your grip. Is this what valor feels like? You wonder aloud to the heavens, or perhaps to that tree that seems far more fascinating than your knight's unyielding weight. Flashes of monumental achievements may dance in your dreams, but right now they're accompanied by the exhilarating thrill of cannonballing into bureaucratic mud. Now, let's delve into the clamor of the battlefield. The clang of swords, the yells of warriors, and your knight's occasional mutters, which sound suspiciously like complaints about the mud being too clingy. Honestly, if you were to diagnose this scenario, you could slap a label on it. Classic medieval peer pressure. Here you are, weighed down by allegiances, while the mud laughs at your struggle. As you wrestle with Sir Gritty Pants, two arrows zip through the air, narrowly missing your forehead and hitting the ground with a squelch. They land nearby with a disheartening splat that echoes through the chaos. You can't help but think how great this would look in a historical reenactment, minus the drama of possibly becoming the lead actor in Arrows, The Unfortunate Truth. Just a little further, you encourage yourself and Sir Gritty Pants, who is currently caught between the medieval version of a bad hair day and the weight of existential dread. Chivalry, you chant to yourself, is just around the corner, and also 7 pounds of mud. With every step, you begin to understand the medieval knight's true burden, the weight of people's expectations, of glory, and of muddy boots. As you finally drudge through the mud, triumphant and breathless, you realize that this is more than just a tale of dragging a knight through danger. You've become part of the mud itself, part of history, stuck in the same struggle that people have faced for ages. Maybe you're not just a failing squire, but a mud warrior, battling against the heavy weights of life and awkward encounters at the medieval brew pub after this whole ordeal. As you gear up for what feels like the marathon of the medieval world, you discover something beautiful nestled within the chaos. The camaraderie, the muck, and the offbeat adventure each squashing muddy step represents. Those moments of pure absurdity transform your struggle into a memory, a heartbeat in history, even if you're complexly entangled in Sir Gritty Pants' sweat-stained armor. You're not just dragging him through mud, you're pulling yourself back into the vibrant narrative of life, a narrative where laughter and cobwebs mingle amidst your daily battles. So, as you dig your boots into the squelching mass and free Sir Gritty Pants from its clutches once and for all, remember, it's not just about the triumph of knights and quests. It's about the intimate dance with the mire of existence itself, where one squelchy moment can lead to laughter just as quickly as it can throw you into existential doubt. And as the shadows stretch around you, you realize that beneath the knightly weight and muddy armor, humor is your ever-present battle companion. So, let the saga unfold, and may your heart stay light as the mud gets deep. Or, at least, deep enough to make great stories in the taverns later. Chapter 10. the silent vigil of the unsung. Hey guys, buckle up your tunics and prepare your senses for a journey colder than your last Tinder date. Tonight, we're diving into a realm where valor meets a lack of personal space, the world of medieval knights. Imagine dreary candlelight, the soft crackle of wax flowing like molten dreams, and the haunting stillness of a chapel that smells faintly of regret and stale bread. But hold on, before we journey into this medieval lullaby, let's ponder a few questions. Have you ever feigned holiness during a boring family dinner to avoid conversations about your love life? Ever tried to meditate while finding the perfect balance between not falling asleep and not looking like a confused potato? Picture that awkwardness cranked to 10 when you're knee-deep in a universe of clanking armor, thick grime, and just one slice of a cold, unwelcoming chapel vibe. Do you ever wonder if medieval knights had emergency snacks tucked into their majestic armor, like modern-day parents trying to keep their kids quiet at the grocery store? Can you imagine balancing the prayerful silence of a vigil with the gnawing feeling of hunger gnashing away in your stomach? Spoiler alert, a knight's siesta is powered by more than faith. It's also fueled by the promise of bread and cheese at the end of a long night. Congratulations! You've just awakened in the year 1402, the moment when we find our protagonist, a young knight in training, knee-deep in a vigil that's about as thrilling as watching grass grow in slow motion. While the candles flicker like they're auditioning for the role of distracted romance, you can't help but glance at your own life and think, could things get any better? Picture this, a simplified white tunic clinging awkwardly to your form, and your forehead is resting on your joined hands like an exhausted owl bemoaning the day's failings. In front of you lies your sword, gleaming with the solemnity of 1,000 unearned trophies. Suddenly, all the glory of knighthood seems a bit overrated, doesn't it? You're not a paragon of valor. You're simply trying to keep your eyelids from staging a rebellion against your consciousness. Let's talk about that chapel's ambiance for a second. The light is dim, casting shadows that morph into peculiar shapes, playing tricks on your eyelids like the world's most boring magician. Every flicker and crackle sends echoes whispering ancient secrets, or just more reminders of your empty stomach. It's a symphony of silence, interrupted only by the distant sound of a goat, yes, a goat, in an adjacent barn, screaming its opinions about life. If only your father could see you now, learning the finer points of restless patience rather than glorious battle. The air around you is thick, imbued with the aroma of candle wax, dust, and an unidentifiable scent that might be either the aftermath of a siege or last week's leftovers. You can't quite place it, but it has a distinct quality of being, well, unpleasurable. It's like breathing in an entire century of regrets. What could that even be? The sweeping absence of hopes dashed, or perhaps just the scattered bits of incense they thought might mask the smells of reality. Well, verse yourself in the holy art of solitude. Here you are, the unassuming aspirant contemplating life choices that led you to this very moment of kneeling. Just you, your sword, and your deep, delightful internal monologue. The ghosts of nights past may have witnessed numerous noble victories, but tonight, they're simply watching you struggle between the absurdity of existence and a desperate attempt to stay awake. How ironic, a knight who can't keep vigilant during his vigil. It's like trying to juggle swords while riding a unicycle on mud. You hear the soft rustle of robes nearby. That's probably another candle-carrying knight trying to figure out the best way to avoid talking about feelings. They shuffle closer, their footsteps almost as heavy as their armor. Why are they always making it look so effortless? Perhaps there's a secret nightly snack stash they're hiding, a nice hunk of cheese stashed beneath their tunic, an ancient recipe handed down from uncles, probably involving copious amounts of bread. And just as your eyelids begin their descent into the land of sheep dreams, an otherworldly thought crosses your muddled mind. Is being a knight really worth it? On one hand, the glory. But in the other, you have knighthood's less glamorous side, a life spent kneeling in candlelit wonder, desperately hoping for something mildly exciting to happen. Kind of like being in a Zoom meeting that never really goes anywhere but just hangs, waiting for someone to derail it with either a bad pun or a too loud cat cameo. A soft inhale from the chapel draws you back under the flickering light. Perhaps this is
your moment for introspection. As you sink deeper into your reverie, you can't help but ponder the significance of life as a novice knight. How long until you can take off that tunic and become dealer of delights rather than keeper of the vigil? What if there's a chance you won't become a hero at all, but simply a man armed with a sword and a clock that only counts the hours in boring stillness? As you grapple with these weighty questions like a wayward soldier caught between honor and an unbearable urge to nap, the chapel walls remain mute interrogators, watchers of your conflict and your ever-present impasse. So, dear knight, let your thoughts meld into the silence of the vigil, and rest assured you are not alone. For somehow, even in this recipe of dim lights and unyielding swords, you unveil a curious spark of humanity. A gentle reminder that even the noblest among us grapple with bare thoughts that don't seem quite so noble after all. So breathe in that musty air. Once more, let the flickering shadows envelop you like a soft, damp blanket. And remember, sometimes a little absurdity is all it takes to fill a chapel with laughter amid the somber ceremonies of dreams yet to emerge. Chapter 11, The Nightly Kneel. Hey guys, welcome back to your favorite time-traveling sleep fest. Dim the lights, crank up that fan, and snuggle under your current favorite blankie. Yes, the one that's seen better days. Tonight, we embark on a journey more fearsome than a bad haircut at your local barber. The thrilling, yet slightly ridiculous life of a medieval knight during the high and late medieval period. Picture this: flickering torches illuminating a grand hall that might as well be the set of a reality show titled, "Who Can Keep a Straight Face While Wearing Armor?" And now, as we delve deeper into this, have you ever thought about how a knight must have felt walking into battle, strapped into layers of heavy armor, and all they could think about was whether they'd taken a really necessary trip to the restroom beforehand? Or consider that the possibility of a flying arrow might just ruin your brand new codpiece. A true tragedy no knight wants to face. You might even be thinking, gee, isn't this just like going to the gym? Lots of flexing and posing, but who's really impressed? So, clasp your helmet and rally your horse. We're in for a wild ride. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1402, right at that moment where a new knight with a gloriously shiny sword is kneeling in a grand hall, filled to the brim with flickering flame, and even more flickering, I really should have thought harder about this, moments. Imagine this vast hall, walls towering like giants made of stone, resonating with echoes of history, and possibly even the occasional sigh from a ghost bored out of his wits. The flickering torches create dancing shadows, casting shapes so absurd that if they had dialogue, they'd probably be arguing about whether or not to order pizza for dinner. The air? Thick with a delightful mix of smoky wood, the scent of sweaty armor, and an overwhelming promise of awkward ceremony. In front of you, the Lord, draped in fabric fancier than a peacock at a fashion show, gently taps the shoulder of you, our freshly anointed knight. You remain stoic, like a stone statue that's just discovered it can blink. Your once glistening sword glints under the torchlight, proudly claiming its spot as the world's most overhyped prop. Yet, as you kneel, take a moment to reflect on your calloused hands. Scars line your fingers like they've been through a dozen sword fights with the mailman. Each scar, a memory, a moment between life and a great deal of inconvenience. You think to yourself, this whole knighthood gig better come with a health benefits plan, and maybe a sushi date afterward. And the gravity of this moment? Oh, it makes everyone around you hold their breath. You know what they're thinking.
Will he live up to the knightly expectations? Or will he trip during the oath and faceplant into the dais like it's a medieval version of a viral fail video? No pressure, right? As the Lord starts reciting the oath, don't be fooled. You might think this is an impressive moment of valor. However, deep down, you're secretly battling an urge to yawn that rivals a lion in mid-stretch. That flickering torch is practically winking at you, saying, "Come on now, living your best life involves naps too." And just as your eyelids threaten rebellion against your noble intentions, your mind drifts. A whimsical stream of consciousness that feels a lot like finding yourself in your Uncle Fred's backyard stories during holiday dinners. If you aren't slaying dragons, why bother wearing all this weight? Why is no one telling you that a simple job, perhaps in the local bakery, slinging fresh loaves of bread, might not involve such heavy lifting? But alas, there you are, standing proud yet bewildered. Is it too late to change your career path to a juggler or a bard? They seem to have much more fun. At least they get to sing and tell tales without tripping over their own spindly legs in useless armor. Suddenly, the Lord finishes his recitation, and everyone erupts into applause, which feels nice unless you've also lost the ability to praise life without secretly longing for a comfortable couch and a hot cup of cocoa. You stand up, feeling like a freshly minted celebrity whose only claim to fame is being knee-deep in an oath longer than your medieval laundry list. Amid this shower of applause, your eyes drift upward, simply mesmerized by the enormous banners hanging from the rafters, which leads you to wonder, who had the brilliant idea to hang those things? Was there a medieval interior decorator who knew how to turn a stuffy hall into a humble abode? Kind of like putting glitter on a compost heap. If only there were design shows back then. This old castle, Viking edition. With nostalgia creeping into your thinking as you gaze wistfully at the banners, your thoughts bubble to the surface. Am I ready for this? Not just the nightly duties. The lack of personal space while battling foes and the occasional crown made of itchy leaves? Fools rush in. And now you're part of the crowd. A knight with a shiny sword, and more importantly, thoughts wading through the absurdity of it all. So here you are, our dear knight, that proverbial fish out of water, poised on the brink of your adventure, where the clang of swords will soon replace the serene glow of this torch-lit hall. And spoilers ahead, soon you'll be in battles where bravery, bumbling, and absurdity collide. Just like that unsightly hair growth you've yet to address in the mirror. And honestly, who wouldn't want that life? Someone hands you the next epic tune of a brave knight staring the reality of life down, one fundamental concern at a time. Will I get to do this without stepping on some goat poop? Because if it's one thing you know well, it's that medieval life isn't just about valor. It's also about navigating the ridiculousness of survival, one awkward misstep at a time. Chapter 12. The Hauberk Hiccups. Hey guys, welcome back to your favorite time-traveling sleep fest. Tonight, we begin with something colder than your boss's stare when you forget to mute yourself on a Zoom call. The harsh, bone-chilling life of a medieval knight. Yes, those gallant figures in shiny armor, who you might imagine swinging swords and rescuing maidens, were often stuck dealing with outfits heavier than your aunt's Thanksgiving casserole, and just about as appealing. Before we dive in, let's have a little chat. Have you ever wondered how chafing could be considered a nightly ritual? Or what it must feel like to suit up in armor that's had more battles than you've had hot meals? And really, is there a medieval equivalent of a stretchy waistband? Because nothing says, ready to battle, quite like you. Laced into layers so tight you think the armor might have been tailor-made by someone with a personal vendetta against blood flow. So, grab your snack, or your imaginary sword, dim the lights, turn on that comforting fan, and wrap yourself in your snuggliest blanket. Let's get cozy with some heavy armor and heavier misadventures. Congratulations, you've just woken up in 1402. Right in the cold, steel-laden chamber of a knight. It's early morning, and you find yourself standing tall, or rather, trying your best to stand tall, given the baggage you're hauling around. You're draped in a heavy hauberk, a shiny coat of interlocking steel rings that seems to gleam with a sense of purpose, or perhaps it's just catching the light in a way that says, "You're going to regret this." Underneath, a thick, padded gambeson clings to you like a well-meaning ex who just won't stop checking in. It's stiff with age, much like the joke about why knights didn't get much sleep. They were too busy getting sword-tied. Ah, the hauberk. It's the medieval knight's version of that one jacket you keep wearing even when
Summer's rolling in, because honestly, it pulls the outfit together. However, let's talk about reality. It's cold and unforgiving. An unsolicited hug from an old friend you never wanted to see again. The metal beneath your fingertips feels like a distant cousin of fridge magnets, clinky, but not in a fun way. As you flex your arms, the rings rattle just enough to remind you of that time you thought you could still fit into your high school jeans. Except this time, it's worse. You're not just cramped, you're stuck in an intricate costume made for a Renaissance fair gone wildly wrong. The sounds of mourning fill this vast chamber. Servants scuttle about, likely rolling their eyes and wondering if being a knight came with a side order of, "Would you like more medieval misery with that?" One could argue that knights were just glorified delivery guys, burdened with the daily special of clanky armor and the faint aroma of unwashed wool. And can we talk about how much food was involved? Surely you'd have to fuel up for all that awkward, trying to sit without clanking action. You catch a whiff of breakfast wafting through the chamber, if you can call it that. It's a blend of stale bread and possibly something that once swam. The meal promises to be as delicious as solving a Rubik's Cube blindfolded, and probably garnished with hearty doses of confusion. This isn't your casual brunch spot, oh no. This is more like a fire drill with outfits designed to make you feel like a human sausage casing. "Time to ready yourself for battle," you hear someone shout. And you can't help but think, isn't this just a family reunion at a chain restaurant with slightly more serious stakes? You squint, and it dawns on you that battle doesn't just mean gathering swords and shields. No, my dear knight. It also means maneuvering as gracefully as a walrus on roller skates, while trying to position your weapon of choice, also known as the sword that's too big for your ego. As you harvest your courage and heave your body into what can only be termed a sideways shuffle, the realization hits. With each step, this glorified tin can of a hauberk scratches your life away like a bad lottery ticket. You know this suit of armor deserves a rant all its own. Is this really the most efficient way to defend your honor? Or did some knight in the past decide to turn practicality into an Olympic sport? The sunlight filters through the narrow, arrow-slit window, illuminating the footprints of your ancestors, who made the tactical decision to stay home rather than trod the battlefield in an ensemble that looks suspiciously like an exterminator's jumpsuit. You roll your eyes, wondering if times have changed at all. You're still in a precarious situation. Nothing has changed except the clothing. It begs the question, what do you have to do to earn your freedom from this walking monument of discomfort? As you step into the hallway, your hauberk clinks and clanks with every shift. This isn't just armor, it's a conversation starter, whether you want it to be or not. What's with the sudden heavy metal vibe? People will ask you later, and you'll have the surreal pleasure of explaining that it was all in the name of valiant knighthood. But as you shuffle past a servant holding a broom like it's a weapon of mass destruction, you know deep down that all they see is an oversized, shiny piñata waiting for a good whack. So prepare yourself. Within moments, you'll brave the field, clad in your glorious and regrettably awkward armor, discovering not just your valor, but a fair amount of hilarity to go along with it. Perhaps this medieval knight experience isn't so bad after all. It's just a different kind of battlefield, one where survival skills have taken on a whole new meaning. Hang tight, because the adventure
is only just beginning,
Chapter 13. The Great Helm Dilemma. Ah, dear knight in shining armor, or perhaps more accurately, knight in tin can imprisonment. Let's peer into the daily existence of a warrior trapped within a great helm that feels a bit more like a medieval iron sauna. You find yourself crouched in the cold stone chamber, squinting through the narrow horizontal slit of this heavy headpiece. It's less of a helmet and more of a relic from a less considerate era, fashioned as if the local smithy had a particularly bad day and decided that you needed to sweat like a marathon runner just to prove your courage. Your brow is slick with perspiration. Marvelous, isn't it? The sweat beads up and runs down your forehead like runaway peasants after a village altercation. You can feel it pooling at the base of your helmet. Speaking of which, it's almost impressive how a mere strip of metal can totally encapsulate the concept of claustrophobia. As you peer out, your world is framed by a dim, narrow view of the bustling chaos that is your life as a knight. Yet you are not just sweating from the heat of this lovably constricting prison. There's an array of anxiety radiating from the knowledge that at any moment you could be asked to engage in swordplay, or worse, hold idle conversation with nobles discussing matters that don't involve slaying dragons or rescuing fair maidens. Great helms weren't merely for protection. They were also the ultimate awkwardness amplifiers. Every slight tilt of your head to admire the craftsmanship of your peers becomes a potential concussion waiting to happen. Speaking of craftsmanship, whoever designed this helmet clearly won the award for most likely to constrict vital functions at the Medieval Design Fair. Now, let's take a moment to appreciate the sights and sounds around you. If your eyes could roll in this suffocating contraption, they would be fully engaged in a dramatic reenactment of a bard's tale about a knight, too, paralyzed by irony to save the day. The soft thudding of clunking armor rings in your ears, a nice touch to this metaphorical horror film. Meanwhile, the unmistakable aroma of pottage wafts through the air, mixed with the vague scent of, well, let's just say it could use a little more market seasoning than boiled roots and an occasional talented rat. Perhaps the real question is, who decided that heating up soup was a great way to start your day? Because inside this heavy armor, you're basically marinating yourself in your own impatience and a hint of yesterday's breakfast. Let's face it, this is the perfect recipe for anything swirling within your helmet, becoming the most uncomfortable sauna experience of your life. Modern spas don't even come close to this kind of sensory overload. And you certainly don't need a Yelp review to establish that. As you stumble about in the half-light, trying to maneuver like a toddler in an oversized suit, let's not forget your poor neck. It's contorted into an angle reminiscent of someone trying to peek over insurance paperwork during an endless Monday meeting. But on the other hand, your neck, once a pillar of strength and stature, is now flexing as if auditioning for the role of injured chicken. You can almost hear the humorous clattering of ribs trying to communicate solidarity with each step. Fighting for honor? Perhaps you're just fighting for mobility in your own glorified shackle. News from the front? We're looking at a glorious game of medieval charades each time a fellow knight greets you. They beam with pride, eyes gleaming under their own varying degrees of confinement, as if to say, "Look at us, caught in our own brilliant metal prisons. How very dashing." And there you are, nodding along with enthusiasm that rivaled a juggler in a blacksmith shop, only somewhat hindered by your own disheveled expression of horror as the potential for unintended neck injury looms closer than the stench of unwashed wool. Oh, but you are not just another poor soul fighting to maintain dignity in this ridiculous ensemble. You are also a beacon of comedy amidst the glamour of gallantry. What's the worst that could happen? Perhaps you'll initiate a new trend, the helmet confusion dance, which kicks off every time you realize you're supposed to exit gracefully, but only succeed in staggering like a newly hatched duck. If these walls could talk, they would laugh hysterically, assuming, of course, they had the capacity for mirth. Thus, you carry on, soldier of the slits.
Ready for action, or just sweeping your surroundings with the understated panache of a warhorse trying to avoid a mud pit? As you shuffle through the door, armor resounding with the familiarity of a rattling tin can, understand this. You are about to engage not just in the battle of swords, but the intricate ballet of human dignity versus iron. And that, my brave knight, is the true quintessence of medieval life. A perpetual dance that pairs discomfort with a daily dose of absurdity. So as the sun rises, illuminating your heroic predicaments, remember, there's always something to chuckle about, even when it's right under that antiquated great helm. Chapter 14. Unleashing the Sword and Mace. Ah yes, here we find ourselves at a crucial moment. The weighty sword and iron mace, two signature pieces of your knightly arsenal. Picture this, if you will, your hand cradling a sword that feels more like a crude iron anchor than an elegant weapon, its notched blade gleaming with what might just be the blood of last week's roast boar, or perhaps, more accurately, some unfortunate tomatoes that dared to roll into your path during your morning run. As you strap on this broad, excessively heavy sword, you can't help but think that whoever designed this weapon was having a very bad day. It's like someone took the concept of handy and decided to interpret it rather generously. Let's make it so unwieldy that operating it feels like trying to slice bread with a 2x4. Your arms ache just thinking about the moments ahead when you'll need to whip this monster out to show off to the group of fellow knights, each
trying to one-up each other in a competitive show of brooding seriousness and testosterone. Now let's talk about the mace. A true work of art, or perhaps a sheer act of artistic frustration. This vicious iron ball with spikes protruding so assertively that they could practically start a debate at a fashion show. You don't hold a mace, you wield it. And what for? A swing and a miss could mean a broader lesson in awkwardness that's sure to haunt your dreams. Plus, when your enemies see you charging toward them, mace held high with sheer determination, they might not know whether they're under attack or if they've just accidentally wandered into an improperly choreographed medieval dance-off. Imagine the scene. It's battle day. You're standing side by side with your fellow knights, trying to look fierce, but inside you're filled with existential dread and diet-related regrets. Will there be pottage served after today's heroic efforts? Or will it just be another day of raw vegetables that look like they've seen better days? The smell of stale bread swirls in the air, joined by the unsettling aroma of metal and sweat. A symphony of scents that could only be rivaled by a sheep market on a hot summer day. Ever tried to take a deep breath while your chest is encased in 30 pounds of steel? You muse to your companion, as you both grimace at the heat radiating off your armor. Your armor, mind you, that has been meticulously crafted and polished, and yet, here you are, turning it into a masterclass in uncomfortable silhouettes. You look less like a glorious knight and more like a very confused tin man on a misguided adventure. The moment of truth strikes. Your commanding officer, a fellow knight with a voice so booming it could rattle the shields of the bravest warriors, calls for swords at the ready. What does that even mean? Do you raise your sword like a flag? Do you brandish it enthusiastically, as if you're auditioning for a role in a particularly dramatic Shakespearean play? There's a certain air of theatricality you never signed up for, but here you are, bewildered and trying not to trip over your own 2 feet in the process. Now, here comes the battle. The clang of swords rings out like the world's most intense symphony of chaos, while knights clash in a chaotic waltz of violence. With every movement, there's a cacophony of sound as iron meets iron, echoing the pure absurdity of the moment. You swing your mace with all the grace of a moose trying to dance ballet. As your opponent ducks, you might as well have just performed a pirouette and a half, completely missing them, of course. But there's more to life than just swords and maces in the medieval realm. Let's not forget the political squabbles of the nobles. Someone has to take care of that swirling drama too. Picture this. At a fancy feast, the lords and ladies all nod politely,
discussing something like the best way to roast a wild boar while you feel grateful for just not being assigned the task of picking off the flies. Your heart races when you realize you just nodded along as they debated traveling from their manor to the next town. Such a bore, you think, while secretly wishing you could join the next round of epic melee rather than endure the aristocratic banter that feels more like a scene from a tragicomedy. And don't even get me started on the idea of chivalry. It seems the only thing dignified here is trying to stay upright while encumbered by the sheer mass of your own gear. Honestly, you can feel your dignity slipping away as you fumble around, desperately avoiding every corner of the castle while trying not to sound like an angry squirrel when you trip over your own sword. At the end of the day, you stand victorious, or at least mostly upright, sweating through layers of armor that smell like they've been marinating in bad decisions and last week's gossip. And yet, as you boot camp your way back to the private quarters, you can't help but chuckle internally. Life as a medieval knight may be brutal, but it's precisely this absurd blend of chaos, humor, and sweaty regrets that makes it oddly relatable, echoing even into our modern lives. So, as your day draws to a close, you might ponder if tomorrow will bring another glorious fight, or perhaps just another generous helping of distinctly mediocre pottage. One thing is for sure, you'll have a tales worth sharing when you do find comfort again. Perhaps even over modern-day theatrics and the latest fashionable memes. Until then, brace yourself for tomorrow's battle with your trusty sword, that beautifully brutal mace, and maybe, just maybe, a better choice for lunch. Chapter 15: The Fiery Outskirts. Hey guys, tonight we embark on a journey that's richer than a feudal lord's summer feast and more chaotic than a jester trying to impress a king. Welcome to the cold, brutal reality of life as a medieval knight. Grab your pillows and settle in, because you've just stumbled into an era where the armor is heavy, the politics are murky, and you're more likely to trip over your own sword than save the day. But before we dive headfirst into this cacophony of clang, clamor, and less than heroic moments, I invite you to dim the lights. Seriously, go ahead. Create that perfect, cozy nest. Put on a fan if you have one, because trust me, the stench of medieval life isn't exclusive to just the peasants. And let's be real, who wouldn't want a breeze when the closest thing to a bath involves jumping into a nearby stream on the rare occasion you feel particularly brave? Now let's ignite some absurd questions that might just linger in your mind while our protagonist rides through the chaos of the age. Have you ever wondered how one might juggle the sophisticated art of sword fighting while simultaneously dodging a barrage of poorly aimed, catapulted vegetables? Or how about the constant fear of being trampled by your own steed, who seems to have a personal vendetta against your shin? What does it really feel like to possess that heavy, shiny armor that promises glory but delivers the subtle humiliation of perspiration seeping in all the wrong places? And when did being called Sir come with the expectation that you should know how to save an entire village from burning to the ground while looking fab in vintage iron? Congratulations, you've just woken up in 1347, specifically right outside a village that's doing its best impersonation of a bonfire. As you ride your spirited steed, the chaos unfolds. A backdrop of flames eating away at homes like an overzealous pot of porridge left to its own devices. Every crackle and hiss of the fire sends an unsettling chill through your spine. Whoever decided to engage in the old seize the village tradition clearly didn't consider the little details, like what happens to the village afterward. Spoiler alert: ruins, ashes, and a distinctly uncomfortable feeling that you just participated in the worst season finale of a medieval reality show. The soldiers in their rowdy frenzy remind you of a group of over-caffeinated squirrels digging through the last remnants of autumn's bounty. They're snatching sacks of grain as if they've just won the lottery of last-minute breakfast options. You feel a pang of sympathy for the terrified villagers somewhere in the smoldering chaos, though you also can't help but think they didn't really stock their pantry with grain-must-go items. Unfortunate timing, eh? Ah yes, your armor. The reflective gleam of your polished breastplate catches the orange firelight, adding a certain flair. Unfortunately, that flair feels more like a graphic novel adventure gone wrong. The weight of your cumbersome gear is an omnipresent reminder that, while the chivalric ideals of bravery look good on parchment, the reality of trudging through a flaming village feels a bit more like a really intense workout. Just imagine if there were serious workout videos, yoga with a sword, where the emphasis is less on anything resembling a Zen moment and more on detangling yourself from the exhaustion of logistics. Like, is this my sword or just a fancy back scratcher at this point? As you trot along, surveying the scene, you hear the soldiers yelling and cackling with an energy that can only be described as a misguided attempt at medieval camaraderie. "Huzzah! Look what I've nabbed!" one shouts, holding up a remarkably unimpressive and already half-eaten wheel of cheese. What is this? The cheese of ultimate power? You think, rolling your eyes internally. The priorities of war are clearly baffling. And if they were lists, your scroll of grievances would read, first and foremost, secure the grain. Second, acquire the dairy. Third, consider finding a better cheese. And if you can't have a better cheese, then at least don't brag about it. The very air around you crackles with a mixture of smoke and an undeniable aroma reminiscent of burnt offerings, a perfume that certainly doesn't belong on a knight's scent list. Even horseback riding feels like a delicate dance where your steed appears overly keen on pointlessly prancing while you're just trying to seem in control. Complicated, yes. Dignified? Not even close. All around, the drama unfolds like a tapestry woven with occasional bursts of hilarity. Runaway chickens scatter beneath the feet of hapless soldiers, as if trying to escape the comedy of errors that reality has thrust upon them. Every time you circle back for a better look, more absurdities pop up like spring daisies. Will today
involve missing the final group of thieves hiding behind the curtain of smoke, or perhaps eventually rescuing someone's lunch from the fire, because no knight worth their weight in chainmail would let a meal be ruined while pursuing glory. So, as you pace this chaotic landscape, one eerie thought seeps in. Is this what valor is meant to feel like? Possibly. More importantly, does this make you a knight? Well, if surviving a circus of medieval absurdity isn't knightly, then you're ready to surrender to the deliciously ridiculous flow of life, one blazing hodgepodge at a time. As you digest this chaotic whirlwind, remember, for every sword swung and every grain seized, there's a ridiculous side note lingering. And yes, these humorous battles might just reflect life in ways you'd never truly consider until you find yourself caught between abstraction and a flaming village. And somehow, you find comfort in this beautiful madness, laughter swirling beneath the heavy weight of your armor. Ah, the joys and horrors of knightly existence. What else might tomorrow bring? A game of wits? Or just more ducking away from unruly kitchen vegetables launched by irritated villagers? Sleep well, valiant warrior, for the trials ahead surely won't lack a good story or two. Chapter 16. The Drenched Knights. Hey guys, tonight, as we find ourselves caught in a whirlwind of heavy wool capes and soggy saddles, prepare to feel colder than a frog in a freezer as we explore the delightful, chilly absurdities of being a medieval knight in the relentless downpour. Imagine an endless, freezing rainstorm. Not quite the romanticized mist of some picturesque painting, but more like an overzealous water balloon fight with absolutely no chance of winning. Now, before we dive in, I kindly nudge you to deal with those pesky distractions. Dim the lights, cozy up with that throw blanket, and if you have a fan, crank it up. You might think you're wrapping yourself in a damp woolen hug. Instead, it'll be the perfect way to vicariously feel the natural aroma that is medieval life. Now, let's rattle around some profound, absurd questions to jolt your sleepy brain before we embark on a journey full of noble quests and misadventures. Have you ever pondered the challenge of riding a horse in muck that rivals a swamp?
all while trying to not look like a soggy potato in a suit of armor. Or perhaps you've wondered what it's like to hear the squelch of mud with every step your noble steed takes, almost setting the rhythm for a dance that you never actually signed up for. And could you even begin to fathom how long it takes to dry out wool capes? Spoiler alert, longer than the average medieval lord's dramatic sigh of defeat. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the 14th century, and let's just say the weather isn't your friend today. You're among a parade of knights, riding toward the distant ridge like a soggy, glittery procession of metal-clad indignity. The air is thick with the unmistakable scent of wet hay, mixed with that delightful essence of soggy misfortune. It's a whole mood, really, if your mood is gray and utterly joyless. Let's visualize it. You're perched atop your noble steed, whose patience is
faltering rapidly as the rain pours down, drenching your once resplendent cape heavier than a disgruntled dog post-bath. Not only are you attempting to maintain some semblance of dignity, but you also can't escape the ridiculous sight of your fellow knights struggling to keep their horses from slipping into their own version of a mudslide stunt show. The relentless rain forms a cacophony of sloshing sounds beneath mighty hooves, reminiscent of very confused ducks taking flight in an orchestra. Yet here you are, semi-clad in armor that's supposed to inspire valor, but instead it feels more like a giant tin can vibrating in the storm. If only your fellow knights could channel their energy into something productive, like building a moat filled with this very inconvenient rain, and perhaps also calling it a day off for baked goods. As your steed's hooves squelch into the thick, gray sludge, you notice your knightly companions puffing out the bravado as they shout cheerfully about their glorious glory. You know, the usual, "Look at me" nonsense. "Huzzah! My cape weighs as much as a small cow," one knight cries as he slides dangerously close to sending both horse and self tumbling into the muck, while another fulfills his role of unintentional comic relief by trying to noble trot and instead doing a very exaggerated duck waddle across the terrain. Now, let's pause and zoom in on those capes, shall we? They are supposed to exude an air of majesty and grace, but truth be told, they're more like heavy, spongy blankets that soak up every drop of wickedness the sky wishes to send your way. A noble knight wearing a cloak is essentially in a wet t-shirt contest, but without the contest, or, alas, the charm. It's just all very sad, really. Oh, and speaking of enchantment, remember that one delightful notion? Onward to glorious conquests. Try telling that to your body, which is fighting the urge to curl up into a ball in a puddle. Have you ever then realized the irony of knights united, not against an enemy, but against the relentless forces of nature? A noble cause indeed. To add to the joyous already chaos, let's consider the horses. They're strong animals, yes, but it's like trying to navigate an obstacle course while holding a giant bouncy ball. Each step is uncertain. Every subtle shift feels monumental. You catch whiffs of damp hay and horse sweat, laced with the ground's muck. And if someone could shine a light on how this was written in the How to Be a Knight manual, that would be terrific. So far, every chapter seems to revolve around, and then you fell face first into the mud, but held your dignity. Somehow. Amidst this comedy of errors, a brief thought flashes by. Being a knight doesn't seem so glamorous anymore. You'd like to think you're riding toward heroism, but in truth, you're just trying not to transfer all that mud into your king's banquet hall later on. A constant balancing act. Like that time you tried to walk across a slippery floor after an enthusiastic cook's spaghetti feast. So, as we ride begrudgingly through this relentless downpour, embrace the reality of knightly existence and the absurdity it entails. Glory and glory are muddled in life's adventures, but rest assured, it's all there, wrapped in a fine coating of absurdity. Next time the clouds roll in and the rain starts to splatter down in your life, just remember, you're not alone,
At least you're not stuck in a medieval cape trying to ride through mud the consistency of a bad soup. Ah, the joy of the nightly venture. May the winds carry your spirit, and may the rain always remind you that tomorrow's challenges are just nightly adventures wrapped in soggy capes.
Chapter 17. The Tumultuous Charge.
Hey guys, tonight, as the very concept of dignity charges headlong into a wall of very large horses, prepare to experience something more chaotic than a toddler armed with a paintbrush. The glorious battlefield of a medieval knight. Picture this, a thunderous charge of knights galloping like caffeinated penguins, their lances lowered, their armor clanking as rhythmically as a malfunctioning wind-up toy. It's not just any day. Today, your noble aspirations will contend with the harsh reality of colliding with something that isn't just the enemy, it's also the ground, hard enough to make you reconsider all your life choices. Now, before you get lost in the hilarity of it all, I gently nudge you to deal with those pesky distractions. Dim the lights, cozy up with your favorite blanket, and if you have a fan, crank it up. Maybe channel your inner medieval knight by pretending you're quietly broiling under a heavy wool cape instead of basking in the modern comfort of your couch. But wait, let's tickle those sleepy brain cells with some absurd questions. Have you ever tried charging while keeping your lunch from spilling everywhere, like attempting a tightrope walk on a moving bus? Or have you drawn comparisons between a horse galloping for glory and the last time you dashed towards the microwave when you heard the pings? And let's not even get started on how the noble cause of fighting for your kingdom could easily become noble cause of keeping your breakfast in your belly while on horseback. Congratulations! You've just woken up around the year 1346, where the air smells distinctly of horse, a hint of metal, and possibly the questionable decision-making of a very brave knight. Here you are, amongst a battalion of knights assembled, waiting to charge with all the grace of a two-legged stool. The air hums with tension, an electric charge accompanied by the chaotic blur of snapping heraldic banners. A cacophony of battle cries, and the distant sound of someone's poor decision to challenge a very large tree. Let's talk about the battlefield, shall we? The ground is a treacherous mess of mud, churned earth, and the unfortunate remnants of meals forgotten from last week's training. Imagine the battlefield as a thick pancake, only instead of syrup, you'll find the sweet scent of impending doom and a healthy dollop of skepticism about your life choices. And there you are, perched upon a noble steed, or something resembling a horse that last saw a bath during the Middle Ages, attempting to hold upright your armor while simultaneously balancing the wild urge to scream, "What have I done?" Now, close your eyes for a moment and immerse yourself in the soundscape of clashing armor. It's like a heavy metal concert, but more like a bunch of lost musicians, each trying to play their own chaotic tune without a conductor, all the while dodging stray arrows. Your heart races, and you can hear the sound of lances slamming against shields, like 1,000 clumsy cooks trying to find the beat of a very impractical drum. And just when you think you found your groove, your horse lunges forward, sending you bouncing like popcorn in a hot pot, adding yet another layer of absurdity to the day. Let's take a step back to marvel at the knightly attire you're unceremoniously encased in. You're wearing armor that, let's be real, feels less like protective gear and more like an elaborate prison built to gradually crush your spirit. Each piece is strategically placed to ensure maximum discomfort, while also allowing you the opportunity to sweat in places you didn't know existed. On top of that, your horse is wearing armor too, because naturally it needed to feel equally over-encumbered while galloping into chaos. As you gallop forward, heads bobbing in an oddly synchronized rhythm that you didn't sign up for, you find yourself praying for smooth terrain. Spoiler alert, it's not forthcoming. Suddenly, your steed stumbles, and for one fleeting moment, you grasp at the last shred of your knightly dignity, only to realize that you are the very embodiment of a brave fool charging into a beautifully choreographed disaster. The knight beside you is shouting something valiant about valor and victory, perhaps mixed in with a healthy dose of fear and splashes of mud that aren't so much a battle scene as they are an initiation into soggy nightclubs of the realm. Just as you muster the courage to shout something equally profound, your voice gets lost in the laughter erupting from your comrades as one of them manages to fling their lance not at the enemy, but at a nearby tree, like an exuberant child playing fetch. And let's not forget the earth. It's as if the battlefields have been sprinkled with the remnants of ancient civilization's most dubious cooking experiments. Mud, muck, and who knows what else squelching beneath mighty hooves. Picture steed and knight in an unintentional tango, trying to evade an ambitious pile of mud waiting like a long-lost relative ready to ruin yet another family gathering. Amidst the chaos, you might wonder where all this unbridled glory leads. Surely there should be a banner to celebrate this cinematic debacle of epic proportions. Alas, that banner is tangled somewhere in the mud as you charge bravely onward, leaving only behind echoes of laughter, camaraderie, and the simultaneous realization that noble is truly subjective when one is reenacting a battleground performance. As you embrace the absurdity of knightly existence, remember this: no matter the mud, the muck, or the clanking, whether you earn a glorious victory or end up stuck on a tree branch, you're in it together, a bunch of brave lunatics galloping through life's ridiculous battles. Ah, the thrill of the charge is upon you. May your horse know how to dodge not only arrows, but also patches of mud that feel more akin to freshly churned butter than a battlefield. Chapter 18: The Muddy Mayhem of the Melee. Hey guys, tonight we dive into something more chaotic than a squirrel at a nut festival: the brutal reality of life as a medieval knight. Picture this: a battleground where the mud is deeper than your last existential crisis, and the air smells like a fine blend of sweat, horse, and a hint of bad decisions. It's a beautiful tapestry of chaos, a landscape where glory is won, wounds are suffered, and dignity? Well, that often flees the moment the first sword swings. Now, just a quick note. If you like this chaos, and I mean really enjoy it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. But only if you genuinely enjoy this, feel free to express your thoughts from the comfort of your couch, perhaps while draped in your favorite blanket, snuggled like a well-loved burrito. So, let's set the mood. Dim the lights a little, and let the cool breeze from the fan wash over you, as if you're standing on an imaginary battleground. Perhaps you can even envision yourself galloping forth with your noble comrades, fully encapsulated in armor that gives you the freedom of a tortoise on a treadmill. Now let me ask you, have you ever found yourself caught in a mosh pit at a concert, only to realize you've lost all sense of control? Or how about those moments when you're carrying a mountain of groceries and it suddenly feels like you're scaling Everest? How does one prepare to charge into battle when their sword feels more like a weighted dumbbell? And let's not even mention that triumphant moment when you realize you've forgotten to eat lunch before this grand adventure. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1346, where your noble job description now reads, Knight Collider of Mud and Mayhem. So here you stand in the midst of chaos, with the sweet symphony of clanging metal, screaming men, and the dreadful squelch of mud beneath your feet completing the backing track of this bizarre life. Welcome to battle. Picture this: knights on foot, lunging forth like overzealous toddlers trying to reach the cookie jar, swords clashing, shields shattered, and a healthy dose of "What on earth am I doing here?" echoing in your brain. The ground, oh dear, the ground is a proper nightmare, soft, squishy, and more treacherous than an unexpected plot twist in a soap opera. Here, mud isn't just a mere inconvenience, it's like an overzealous friend who insists on draping themselves over you during the most inappropriate moments. Sorry, Jeffrey, from last week's tavern brawl. You'd think you were walking on a sponge cake, but alas, this lovely pastry of a battlefield is layered with the remnants of last week's ill-fated siege feast. making every step a test of faith in your own footwear choices. Now, as you stand there, imagining yourself somewhere between a bold crusader and a bemused chicken, let's talk about your nightly attire. You're lugging around armor that feels less like protective gear and more like an elaborate costume designed for a very unflattering beauty pageant. Each piece clinks together like you're a human jingle machine going off at the most inappropriate of times. Think first date jitters meets a middle school marching band. Your trusty steed, bless its hooves, looks equally bemused. Its adorning armor so thick it could stop an arrow, but you have to laugh. At what cost? If you've ever tried carrying more grocery bags than humanly manageable, you shared a moment with this poor creature. You may even have to kindly remind it to not step in that suspicious pile of what might be more than just mud. And just when you think you're getting the hang of this battlefield gallop, bam! Your horse unexpectedly lurches forward. Oh no. You sway as if auditioning for an unfortunate version of Dancing with the Stars, desperately grasping at the saddle while your dignity and balance teeters on the edge of disaster. All around you, knights are falling, flailing, and occasionally getting their swords entangled with their comrades, as if they had all taken an impromptu group tango class. In this glorious mess, brilliant battle cries erupt all around. One knight earnestly shouts about valor, until mud splatters him directly in the face, like an ill-timed pie throw. You have to wonder who thought a battle would be the best place to hold such enthusiastic speeches. Imagine trying to convey profundity while your visor is half full of mud, and you've got the right image. Ah, the sweet sound of clashing swords rings like music to your ears. If that music were actually a dozen cats trying to fight a robotic vacuum. The chaos roars on as arrows whiz by like rogue pigeons, occasionally finding their way into unfortunate places, like your neighbor's hand, as they awkwardly scratch their nose mid-charge. And amidst this delightful absurdity, just when you think you've finally grasped the art of navigating this muddy melee, someone shouts a battle command, and off you go, galloping toward an enemy that's just a few too many yards away. You lunge forward, imagining yourself a valiant hero, but really, you're just a walking disaster about to star in a medieval slapstick comedy. Life as a knight is glorious, they say. And yet, you can't help but realize, sometimes the greatest victories come not from conquering lands, but rather from simply staying upright in the chaos. So, as you stumble forward, may your shield deflect not just arrows, but also the absurdity of life itself. Remember, every muddy misstep is a story waiting to be told. And in this glorious mess, camaraderie is not just a reminder of valor, but also a hilarious bond shared among brave goofballs charging onward. As the melee rages around you, embrace the laughter, the chaos, and the fact that tomorrow, mud might just become your magical cloak of honor. Proof of your absurd escapades in this gallant quest. We call life. We call Chapter 19, The Silent Histories of the Fallen. Hey guys, tonight we find ourselves in a land colder than your aunt's icy stares at family gatherings, a post-battle battlefield. Now picture this. The intense echoes of clashing swords have faded into a haunting silence, and the only thing left is the occasional cawing of crows managing a morning coffee. Because hey, they're professionals at making a mess out of anything. If you're feeling brave enough to thrive through this somber scene, remember to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Only if you have genuinely enjoyed yourself, that is. Let's keep the comment section a cozy corner of joy, and not a quagmire of medieval gossip. Now, take a moment to set the mood. Dim those lights just a bit more, maybe flip a fan on low. Yes, that soft breeze is fabulous, like a gentle whisper from the universe reminding you to relax. Grab your favorite blanket, the one that doubles as a cocoon when the universe has decided you need some extra warmth. So, let's plunge into the thoughts circling your mind. Ever looked at your life decisions and thought, did I really need to invite that grumpy friend to dinner? What about when you go for a run and realize you haven't stretched in ages, ending up like a sad gummy worm? Or picture yourself at this silent battlefield, surveying the wreckage and spotting that one shoe, eventually realizing you forgot the other one in your kitchen. A classic move, really. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1350, a glorious time where you can proudly wear your rusty chainmail, trudge through mud that is essentially an artistic mix of dirt and regret, and ponder why exactly you signed up for this whole knighthood gig. Trust me, they didn't have HR back then to review job descriptions. Let's talk about this battlefield, a silent stretch resembling a melancholy concert without the soul-soothing music. Its muddy ground churns beneath your boots like an undercooked pastry, each step met with the squelch of soggy earth that screams, "Hello, you've made poor footwear choices." Oh, the drama is palpable. It's as if Mother Nature herself decided to stage a production of what happens after you forget to bring an umbrella to battle. As you wade through the aftermath of this medieval fiasco, crows circle overhead, playing their own twisted game of, what can we land on next? Their incessant caws drift down, echoing the complex histories of those who fought bravely, or perhaps foolishly, beneath this melancholic sky. They are critiquing your muddy boots as if they are fashion experts at a royal gala, blessed with the skepticism of 1,000 gazes fixated on your still glimmering armor. Your thoughts land upon a more grim twist of fate as you spot a broken shield jutting out from a puddle, its once brilliant colors now muted, like an old memory fading into oblivion. It belonged to Sir Geoffrey, your comrade in
arms. And now here it lies, a testament not just to valor, but also to the great embarrassment of getting knocked down by a rogue potato cart. Yes, potatoes, medieval weaponry some deemed unworthy until it slipped behind enemy lines and derailed a noble charge. You tiptoe around, avoiding the remnants of battle like they're the fragile hopes of a peasant hoping not to get dragged into the local lord's next feasting extravaganza. You can practically taste the despair in the air, mingled with the scent of iron and an unsettling hint of desperation, as if the very soil mocks those who dared to dream of honor and glory. Ah, and there you stand, feeling more like a bemused dandelion swaying in the wind than the dashing crusader you once imagined. You've crossed the Rubicon of foolishness. Your closest friends either fallen into soft puddles of mud, or worse, tangled up with the remnants of their own swords in a dramatic struggle reminiscent of a medieval wrestling match gone soon, terribly awry. As crows entertain themselves with newfound treasures of broken sword hilts and an unfortunate relic of an oversized hat, you can't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. Here lay the remnants of valor and brotherhood, smothered in a squishy mess that could seriously reconsider its life choices. And yet, here's the punchline wrapped in a cloak of irony. Amidst all this chaos, the bonds you forged in mud and battle are about as precious as one of those ridiculously overpriced artisanal cheeses sold at modern farmers markets. Because let's face it, surviving the sheer absurdity of these moments when your worst fears manifest in the form of your own ineptness, well, isn't that just the battle worth fighting? So as the sun begins to set, casting an orange glow over the ludicrous landscape of misplaced valor, you take a deep breath. For all the satire of life as a knight, you realize that sometimes it's the absurd moments, the ungraceful tumbles into the muddy regret, the loud expressions of companionship amidst chaos that truly build a legacy worth sharing. And while Sir Geoffrey might not be here to share a mug of ale, you both know he'd laugh alongside you if he could. Or perhaps you'd both just laugh at the sight of crows claiming the battlefield leftovers for their own glory. Embrace the absurdity, dear knight, for it's not just about battle swords, shields, or muddy boots. Sometimes it's about finding joy in places you least expect. Chapter 20. Lances, Laughs, and a Dash of Mud. Hey guys,
Tonight we find ourselves in the midst of something wilder than your last online dating experience. A medieval tournament. Picture it. A sprawling field ablaze with colors, as though someone spilled every jar of paint at a pep rally. Seriously, if the Renaissance had a sloppily organized fashion show, this would be it. There are tents that seem to compete for the title of most likely to collapse at the slightest breeze, and banners flapping like they're auditioning for a Renaissance version of America's Got Talent. Before we dive headfirst into the pageantry and mischief, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment, but only if you've genuinely enjoyed yourself. We're aiming for a cozy atmosphere here, folks, not a medieval gossip pit. Unless, of course, it's about the knight who lost his trousers in public again. Now, take a moment to dim those lights even more. Maybe turn on that fan to enjoy a soft
breeze, like the gentle sighs of the universe encouraging you to relax. Snuggle into your favorite blanket. Yes, the one that smells like your past mistakes and is a little too cozy. Ever wondered if your neighbor's snoring could shatter crystal like a battle trumpet? Or pondered why you signed up for that fitness class only to find it was all belly dancing? Imagine being among noble knights squaring off against a potential foe, with a lot less grace and far more mud than an awkward Zumba session. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1350, and it's tournament day. Welcome to an event that screams valor and camaraderie, but let's be honest, it's more like a grand, chaotic barbecue filled with dudes in shiny suits of armor trying not to trip over their own lances. As you step into this vibrant haven of cheer and questionable hygiene, the jubilant sounds of the crowd wash over you like a hearty stew, warm but slightly unsettling, thanks to the odd whiff of wet hay and roasted meat mingling in the air. The atmosphere pulses with excitement, mingled with the distinct aromas of grease and ambition. Ever smelled despair dripping off a well-cooked sausage? You're about to. Let's talk about the jousting area, shall we? The knights brave enough, or perhaps foolish enough, to step forward are clad in armor so shiny it could double as a mirror at a fancy ball. You can practically see your startled reflection, reminding you that you still haven't quite mastered the art of waking up before noon, let alone charging at someone on horseback. This is the moment when you realize that being a knight is more about maintaining that impeccable outer shine, while your insides are doing an interpretive dance of anxiety. Just wait until the jousting begins. You watch a knight, Sir Clangsalot, known for his ability to accidentally clang into most things, including his own horse, ride confidently toward his opponent. The crowd erupts like they've just seen a cat juggling flaming torches, filled with cheers and laughter. Forget about grace, it's all about spectacle. His lance, sturdy yet awkward, is raised high in an attempt to show he, at least, remembers how to aim. Sort of. And then, snap. The lance shatters into 1,000 splendid pieces, like a piñata at a child's birthday that just found out it forgot its own party. It's pure chaos, wooden shards flying like confetti from a particularly rowdy wedding, while the painted shield of his opponent stands there, rather unimpressed by the whole affair, as if it's just waiting for a good monologue about existential dread. Congratulations, Sir Clangsalot, you chuckle to yourself. You've just unveiled a new event in the tournament, people versus wood relics. And what a delightful sight it is. Spectators cheer as the splinters rain down. Some grab stray pieces, as if they are precious memorabilia from a grueling battle. In the modern world, this is where you'd find people taking selfies for Instagram. But in 1350, they're trying to profit off of the cool combat wood, while discussing if it would look good above the fireplace, next to their collection of animal skulls. Next, our friend Sir Clangsalot, now more embarrassed than assertive, tries to navigate the aftermath of his glorious attempt. He attempts to guide his steed out of the jousting lane, but the horse appears to have other ideas, as it casually trots toward the tent selling roasted fowl. Who can blame it? You'd be tempted too, considering the average fare of boiled cabbage might as well be a medieval version of hay for the common peasant. But nostalgia begins to wash over you as you witness the camaraderie within this chaos. Knights clasp shoulders, some pouring mead as they laugh heartily about their various fortunes in battle, like when Sir Reginald mistook a chicken for an enemy in armor. Let's just say the chicken won that round. The bond formed in this absurd competitive struggle is enough to make you hopeful about human decency, at least until tomorrow's hangover kicks in. As the day unfolds, you can't help but admire the sheer absurdity. Knights are attempting to train their squires, who seem more enthralled by the wandering minstrel with a lute than anything to do with knighthood. Sure, you thought that might have been you back in the good old days, before sitting at a desk became a thing. Yes, this tournament is far from the heroic portrait the bards will later paint. It's a tapestry woven together with laughter, mischief, and a generous splattering of mud. A stoic reminder that some days, life is as much about the glory as it is about the giggles and mishaps that come along the way. And hey, who doesn't love watching a knight trip over his own feet while trying to appear majestic? So settle in, dear spectator of life, as we journey deeper into this ridiculous and whimsical realm where not all battles are won with swords, but rather won through laughter and the unending quest for snacks at a medieval feast to fuel the next round of jousting absurdities. Chapter 21, The Comical Quandary of Property Lines. Hey guys, tonight we find ourselves in a conundrum that's less life or death and more who gets the half-empty jug of pickle brine. The harrowing and humorous life of a medieval knight settling local disputes. Picture it, a heavy oak table creaking under the weight of questionable decisions, much like your own dining table after a good feast of cold leftovers you claimed were home-cooked. Trust me, this night's day isn't going to be any less ridiculous than your last family reunion. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of these unfortunate peasants trying to claim their imaginary land, trust me, it's exciting in a watching paint dry kind of way. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment, but only if you actually enjoy this. We aren't forging a sword here. We're creating cozy bedtime stories with a side of chuckles. Now, take a moment to dim those lights even further. Perhaps you are yearning for that eerie calm of a medieval night. Just imagine the draft, minus the pleasant benefits of modern heating. Feel free to turn on a fan and get comfortable, like the noble knight, or squire, or random vagrant you're about to become. Ever wondered how it feels to try and sort out grievances between people who've mistaken a cow for a legal advisor? Or pondered how a stray goat inevitably becomes a divorce attorney in these scenarios? Imagine having to break up an argument that sounds like a toddler tantrum, but involves more mud and less reason. Just think, sealing a deal with a weird handshake that looks suspiciously like a medieval version of a TikTok dance move gone wrong. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1385, and it's time to settle some local disputes. The view from your grand manor, or let's call it a rather sizable hut, offers a delightfully rustic panorama consisting of fields, dirt paths, and more ghostly cows than you'd care to admit. And there you are, seated at that heavy oak table. Sure, it smells like old bread and long-forgotten secrets, but this is your throne. Dressed in your wool tunic, comfortably shedding the encumbering weight of your armor, you are the mighty arbiter of fear. Or at least a vaguely irritated knight trying to drink lukewarm ale while fielding squabbles. Let's talk about the scene flourishing around you, shall we? In this corner, we have Farmer Bob, an exceptionally disgruntled peasant whose face looks like something you'd only want to encounter in a poorly lit alley, arguing vehemently about a property line that he insists has shifted a whole foot. "That's my turnip patch," he bellows, as if turning up the volume will somehow add legitimacy to his claim. And in the opposing corner is old Maisie, a peasant whose gnarled yet feisty spirit is something that should honestly be bottled and used as a travel drink. "No, it's mine. You just want to hog all the pickled cabbage," In her thin bundle of rags, Maisie stands there, a veritable tornado of indignation with the furious fire of 1,000 suns. The two peasants argue back and forth, like toddlers in a candy store who've just discovered the existence of broccoli. It's loud and frustrating. Your head starts spinning, mainly from the realization that this merry dispute has absolutely nothing to do with swords, valor, or all those cool knightly things you were hoping for when you signed up for this gig. Honestly, you muse, I'm just here for the snacks. Someone should really consider starting a mediation program that focuses primarily on snack distribution. It could revolutionize how disputes are resolved, one fig at a time. You raise your mug for a sip of ale, but alas, it tastes like it's been brewed in the same barrel as last week's regrets. A new sensation of mouth headache washes over you. I'm sure it could be worse, you whisper to yourself. Encouragingly, as you hear Farmer Bob compare Maisie's sense of morality to that of a rabid wolverine. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow I'll have all the answers. But for now, here you are, marooned in a twilight zone of agricultural grievances. You can't help but wonder if taking up jug juggling would have presented a more practical career choice. People react better to clowns, right? And besides, at least when juggling, a stray goose wouldn't suddenly sidetrack your whole argument. As debate continues to spiral into ludicrous accusations, you can't help but break into a slight smile. The grandiosity of their tiny world and its monumental debates over a few cabbages thoroughly engulfs you in absurdity. Who knew that about half of being a knight revolved around mediating nonsense about imaginary boundaries drawn with crumbling sticks? Shuffling papers, more akin to dry leaves scuttling away on a breezy day, you decide it might be easier to flip a coin, and decide to stick your finger into the nearest pot of cold stew to gauge the temperature, thinking it best to jump to a conclusion before your own patience runs out completely. Just then, Farmer Bob decides to switch tactics and offers you a piece of pickled fish as a bribe if you rule in his favor. The illustrious charm of medieval negotiation. In this endless exchange of haggling absurdities, you realize that being knightly sometimes comes down to squabble-squashing skills, rather than fighting or feasting. You chuckle softly to yourself. Well, if I could just trade in all my sword lessons for a pickle and some pie, I'd be set for life. You lean back, absorbing the delightful chaos unfolding. After all, if life teaches us anything, it's that there's a certain joy to be found in the misadventures of medieval life, even if it is encapsulated in the storied art of dispute resolution. And of course, keeping control of your once fresh pickled fish. Now, let's see who really owns that turnip patch when it's all said and done. Chapter 22. Taxing Times in a Grainy Economy. Hey guys. Tonight we're diving deeper than a peasant's hopes of rising in station. Welcome to tax collection in the medieval world, a delightful experience that's about as pleasant as stepping on a particularly prickly hay bale. Picture this, a knight standing proud in a sunlit field of golden barley, watching as ox carts groan under the weight of grain sacks, each one more jostled than a royal goose at a family picnic. Before we get lost in tales of agrarian toil and dubious taxation methods, much like your last visit to the DMV, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, but only if you genuinely find this amusing. I'm not here to be an annoying medieval telemarketer after all. Now how about we set the mood? Dim those lights a little further. Perhaps turn on a fan to recreate the breezy joy of a land without modern conveniences, where a cool gust might just throw the nearest straw hat off its peg, like some unlucky someone about to face the consequences of poorly timed wind. Are you comfy? Great. Let's go on a journey. Ever wondered what it feels like to see a steward scratching his head over a parchment scroll, trying to figure out how many bushels it takes to equal a sheep? Or fantasized about overseeing a tax collection while secretly daydreaming of becoming a professional pie taster instead? You might even ponder whether your medieval equivalent of today's adulting fails involved cold porridge and suspiciously flat beer, rather than student loans and rubber chicken dinners. Congratulations! You've just woken up in 1385, and it's time to experience tax collection minus the soothing comforts of a couch or a snack break. The sun is shining, the barley is swaying, and here you are, a knight in not-so-shiny armor, ready to uphold the law. You stand in a vast field, surrounded by the cheerful chatter of peasants who would gladly trade a pair of dirty boots for a decent crop yield. A gentle breeze wafts through the air, carrying with it the earthy scent of freshly harvested grain. But don't let the idyllic view fool you. This serene landscape is brimming with tension. Close by, ox carts are piled high with bulging grain sacks that seem to be overflowing like your midlife crisis budget. You squint at the spectacle, giants of fickle fortune above the backs of hard-working peasants. The oxen shuffle nervously, and you're left wondering, are they simply disinterested in their dreary task, or plotting a dashing getaway? The steward, a fellow dressed in a somewhat worn but well-meaning outfit, stands beside you, scratching furiously at a parchment scroll that looks suspiciously outdated. You imagine it must hold all the depth of a medieval note scribbled in a panic, like your friend's last-minute grocery list for a potluck. "What's the yield on this side of the field?" he half shouts, hoping someone will provide the answer in the form of an enchanted number. "It's 50 bushels, a peasant calls out, waving an arm like a flag of surrender. The look on his face suggests he's either trying to be helpful or hoarding barley like it's a limited edition collectible. You give a nod, the knightly equivalent of saying, "Good job, soldier," and turn your attention back to the steward, who seems to be whispering sweet nothings to the scroll, praying for it to magically add up. You can't help but chuckle quietly as you remember family gatherings where everyone pretended their math skills were as sharp as their wits. 5 sheep equal 1 cow, you think. Then 3 cows equal… what? Maybe a few hungry mouths? The absurdity of it all could rival an overripe fruit salad in its delightful chaos. As you oversee these transactions, you start imagining tax collection in modern-day terms. Right. So 50 bushels of grain come to… well, I'm not entirely sure, but it's basically enough for a week's worth of cooking with a side of pickled regrets. Alas, medieval math is intricate enough to confuse a wise owl. But nothing can calm the storm of hunger raging in the hearts of these peasants, you muse. They grumble, fumbling to make sense of what belongs to whom. To make their lives genuinely tumultuous, you spot Farmer Bob lurking about, looking as if he's just lost his last penny. His brow furrows like a bunch of shriveled cabbage leaves as he clutches his tattered cap, probably wondering if anyone will notice if he quietly pockets a sack. "Just so you all know," you pipe up with a smirk, because that's what knights do. You spread good cheer. "If you want to barter for tax breaks, I accept cheese and the occasional loaf of bread." You see their faces light up, picturing a world where taxes are negotiated like a delightful game of medieval Monopoly, except with real stakes and a lot more mud. As the sun begins to dip, casting long shadows over the field, you realize that being a knight isn't as glamorous as fairy tales make it sound. You're not galloping on a majestic steed wielding valor. Rather, you're overlooking carts full of grain, eyeing dubious transactions with the scrutiny of someone inspecting leftover casserole. Who knew that your quest for glory would find you staring down the jaws of the income tax monster instead? The excitement of Lord Protector of the Barley might soon lose its charm as reality sets in, especially when your biggest argument of the day was convincing a peasant that he couldn't barter his prize pig for a tax refund. The pleasures of duty. As the evening falls, you feel a wave of calm wash over you, the kind that can only come from helping people in the mildly absurd arena of medieval finance. Perhaps one day the tales of your brave exploits will tell of the noble knight
who single-handedly brokered tax treaties while rejoicing in the glory of grilled cheese sandwiches.
Ah, the dreams of a warrior, clad in unexpected richness and surrounded by endless laughter. So sit back, dear listener, revel in this odyssey of taxation, where your wildest dreams and ridiculously awkward barter negotiations meet in a swirling dance fit for the pages of history, awkward moments and all. Chapter 23. The Fireside Reverie of Sir Winkle's Woes. Hey guys, tonight we're settling into something more intimate than a peasant's idea of personal space. Welcome to the late-night musings of a medieval knight. Imagine this. An older knight, quadruply swaddled in a cloak that could possibly double as a crumpled map and has seen fewer washings than a lord's finest linens. He's perched beside a dying hearth fire, gazing dreamily into a tepid bed of glowing embers, like a poorly made s'more that just can't find its graham cracker. Before we tumble further into this cozy yet cold corner of history, like a suspiciously firm chair at your favorite coffee shop, be sure to like, subscribe, and maybe comment if you find this tickles your fancy in that fuzzy, sleepy way. No pressure though. I'd rather not be your medieval telemarketer inconveniencing you before bedtime. So, dim those lights even further, like obliterating your annoying neighbor's overly bright porch light. Crank up a fan if you've got one handy so you can appreciate the breeze of an era without central heating. Forget air conditioning. Here, we only have a foundation of charred wood and poetic loss. Ever wondered what it's like to sit by a fire while contemplating the deeper mysteries of life? Like, how did it come to pass that your best friend wants to enlist you in a strange quest for a mediocre goblet? Or have you ever seen someone stare into the distance and you just know they're trying to summon a sense of purpose, while, at the same time, wondering when the last time they even washed their armor was? What would a medieval knight's midnight snack look like? Spoiler, it's not as glamorous as you'd hope. Congratulations! You've just woken up in the year 1457, curled up in the draping gloom of Sir Winkle's second-best chamber, complete with the rich ambiance of camphor and suffering. The fire crackles like a mini dragon, reminding you of your own Delightful snack time fire escapade. If only the snacks involved more than stale bread crusts and hard cheese that fought back. Your rusted helmet leans sadly against the wall, like a relic waiting its turn on the shelf of the local museum. Let's not even begin to describe the layers of grime and medieval history it's accumulated. If only it could talk, it would probably tell tales of ambition overshadowed by poorly timed sword fights, and the little glories lost in muddy battlefields where the outcome was never quite what one would hope. You glance around, the flickering light casting shadows more dramatic than a bard's recitation. The walls of the chamber are imbued with memories, scuffed with forgotten tales, marked by the kind of candle drippings that suggest a knight may, or may not have, been trying to invent modern art with beeswax. There's a distant howl from a cornfield, a sound somewhere between a wolf and someone getting quite irate over a misplaced goat. Let's delve into this nightly cave of wonders. Sir Winkle's shoulder, a map of past battle scars, aches as if it's contemplating the sheer brutality of life, mostly focused, of course, on the cold night stealing through the cracks of his wall. The icy draft might be the least friendly of his companions, surpassing even his former comrades who would shamelessly gnaw on bread covered in unidentifiable fluff. Rubbing his shoulder now, you'd think he was trying to summon the spirit of long-forgotten healing herbs rather than a moment of clarity. How does an aging knight confront the existential dread of being more out of shape than his own battered sword? With profound seriousness, he talks to the fire, as if setting up a debate about leftover turnips. Yes, even embers can make for fine conversationalists when beds are too hard and thoughts too slippery. Now you might ponder over the absurdity of it all, being in the company of a knight, eating only the crispy remains of his last meal, which, let's be honest, tastes like despair steeped in regret. At times, it's like that one friend who always talks too much
and brings only depressing snacks to a gathering. "Hey, look, I brought these dried figs, perfectly aged since last harvest," Sir Winkle might attempt cheerily, to which you'd respond, "Charming, but do you have anything that doesn't require dental reconstruction?" As he warms his hands, the glow of embers highlights the age in his eyes, those wise protagonist eyes eager for that next great adventure, despite the imminent threat of sathooks. "Life as a knight is much like wrestling a sack of potatoes," Winkle mumbles softly to himself, "full of slippery foes, odd subtleties, and dubious culinary choices." Perhaps the knight's biggest foe tonight, however, is not an enemy force, but rather his own persistent longing for a night of unfiltered sleep. Sleep. That luxury tucked away under layers of plaid blankets and
Heavy quilts, in a world where blankets are like prized possessions. "In my day," he muses, sounding oddly like a modern-day grandparent with opinions on everything, "we fought dragons and claimed them as trophies, not just for show, but also to avoid having to sleep with the smell of sheep every night." His musings drift on, meandering through his memories of battles fought, pies eaten, and the bittersweet taste of glory that never quite filled the plate. And so, ensnared in the embrace of the dying fire, Winkle continues to contemplate life, the universe, and whether there were enough potatoes to last until the harvest moon. After all, being a knight was not just an ambition. It was a comical disaster of expectation versus reality, one that, like many medieval dinners, often ended with a questionable taste lingering at the back of the throat. So, my dear listener, take that thought about pain, potatoes, and the fleeting nature of glory as you drift into dreams of quests far grander than standing by a hearth with an aching shoulder, more ambitious than poorly planned late-night cooking, and infinitely weirder than any medieval tax collection. Allow Sir Winkle's woes to guide you into a sleep as comforting as the soft caress of a well-worn blanket. Sweet dreams await, perhaps crafted from turnips or even less identifiable sources. Chapter 24. The Perilous Perch of Sir Blundermore. Hey guys, tonight we're gazing upon something cooler than a knight's attitude when asked to wash their armor: the remote battlements of a medieval castle. Imagine this, an aging knight donning a helmet that might have once been polished but currently looks as if it's taken a dirt nap in a goat barn. He's wedged between the chilly stones of a battlement, arms crossed over a breastplate that's about as affectionate as a disinterested cat. There, in the far distance, like some far-off cousin of a thunderclap, a puff of smoke lazily rises from a primitive cannon, a moment of dramatic effect akin to bad fireworks at a family reunion. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a day in the life of Sir Blundermore, the sort of knight who's more concerned about his breakfast than a potential enemy attack. You know, priorities. Before we dive too deep into this tattered tale, a tale longer than the line at the local tavern for stale mead, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, but only if you enjoy this. We want nothing more than to tickle your funny bone as you drift off into dreamland, with a chuckle or two echoing in your mind. Now, imagine dimming those lights, wrapping yourself in a blanket so tattered it could be a historical document, and cranking up that fan like it's trying to blow away your medieval woes. Would you ever wonder if knights in shining armor were just show-offs who secretly longed for a day off, or if they questioned their life choices while grappling with dubious forms of table etiquette? Ever pondered why their sword training didn't include the fine art of dodging peasants with bad breath? Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1485, the year when armor became less about glimmering glory and more about grappling with a pesky reality check. Welcome to Sir Blundermore's stiff existence on the castle battlements, where his aspirations of gallantry are frequently overshadowed by a desperate desire for a soft bed and a nap. Let's check out our noble knight on his chilly perch. The stones beneath his feet are colder than a witch's heart during a chilly autumn, poking into his booted toes with the enthusiasm of a particularly dedicated juggler. As he squints into the distance, a passing cloud lazily obscuring the sun, he contemplates the true cost of being a knight in the late medieval period. Spoiler, it's a lot like an extended membership to a gym you never attend. Why does everyone say, "You must be noble," without mentioning the backache? He muses aloud, shaking his head as if the armor weighing down each limb was made of stubborn potatoes. Sir Blundermore gazes at the puff of smoke, pondering, are they firing cannonballs? Or is that just the castle chef experimenting with his latest stew? A whiff of something not entirely pleasant wafts through the air, not unlike the last thing he had for dinner. Or perhaps lunch, or maybe even breakfast. This is what ignites his greatest question yet. How does one wield a sword when half the time you're wrestling with the aftermath of last night's meal? The sound of ringing metal echoes in the distance, and he imagines what his fellow knights must be doing right now. Probably struggling not to drop their shields while sneaking an unchivalrous bite of stale bread. Such is life in the line of duty, a thrilling blend of courage and colicky stomachs. As the sun shifts sporadically, a thought strikes him. Could this be why we don't take showers as often as you'd hope? With mud caked deep into the stitching of his tunic, he absent-mindedly brushes at a patch that might have been gravy at one point, but now resembles a creature of its own. To honor the chivalric code, he ponders, do I really need to keep fighting at my age? Or could I just challenge fate to a duel with comfy slippers instead? It's a philosophical conundrum, really. Like contemplating the joys of the afterlife while still mulling over lunch. Must I endure another chilly evening swept up in chain mail that clangs louder than a lord's emotional breakdown? His weariness grows thicker than the mist rolling over the battlements, and he reflects on what brought him here. Who knew that one day he'd trade his youth for a life of endless jousting and gladiatorial antics, when all he really wanted was a pint by a warm fire? His gaze wanders over the horizon, a dreamy look in his eyes. The weather now seems more like an anxious relative fretting over dinner arrangements, a daunting image etched within his noble heart. Must I remain vigilant against foes of yore when I can barely master the art of standing still? He wonders, shifting his weight from one leg to the other. The distant sounds of clattering armor reach his ears, igniting his doubts like a poorly made torch. At this rate, I might as well hang a sign, guarding against enemies, but also quite worried about my back. As the sun dips below the horizon, Sir Blundermore realizes that life as a knight, while noble and grand, is also rife with the fragile irony of aging beyond gallant quests. And with that thought, he lets out a deep, existential sigh, resembling a haggard old horse in need of a kind word. Vowing to remember this truth, a knight spends more time wondering about toilet arrangements on the battlefield than vanquishing true foes. He pulls his cloak tighter around him, leaving himself to the mercies of a night filled only with the gentle rustle of curtains caught in the wind. And as you feel the warmth of your bed wrap around you, maybe let the laughter of Sir Blundermore guide you into dreams where the weight of armor takes on new meaning. Ah, sweet slumber awaits, dear listener. Chapter 25. The Passing of the Sword. Hey guys. Tonight, we're delving into something heavier than the burdens of unpaid taxes in medieval times. The epic moment of a knight handing down his family sword to a wide-eyed squire. Picture this: an elderly man, cradling a sword so massive it could double as a battering ram, stands against the backdrop of a sunset that looks as exhausted as he feels. The sun itself seems to roll its eyes, casting a golden hue on the castle towers behind them, like a theatrical spotlight on a scene from a drama where everyone knows the ending is slightly tragic. Before we forge ahead into this tale, thicker than a knight's armor after a week of no washing, I invite you, dear listener, to like, subscribe, and leave a comment.
but only if you're struck by an urge to do so. No pressure. Now, let's get cozy, dim those lights, and treat ourselves to the warmth of a blanket that could possibly be a historical artifact. Are you ready to ponder the big questions tonight? Like, how do you even carry a sword so heavy it has its own gravitational pull? Or do you think squires were actually just well-trained errand boys traded for a promise of glory and slightly shinier armor? Ever wonder if the only real training they received was dodging overly zealous knights with tiny egos? Congratulations! You've just woken up in 1395, where knights are trading glory for backaches, and sword fights are as common as awkward silences at a family reunion. Imagine a time when you could be clobbered before breakfast and still make it to the tavern for a pint of questionable ale. A real balancing act of medieval life. Let's focus on our elderly knight for a moment. Feel the weight of history in his thin, spotted hands as he grips the hilt of that ancestral sword, a weapon that could tell stories of battles fought and dreadful misadventures in the local tavern. The metal glints in the fading light, as if begging for just one last epic duel. Or perhaps a graceful retirement to a place where daily activities simply involved trying to remember where one left that pesky pair of spectacles. Ah, but there is the young boy, the eager squire, with wide eyes that shine brighter than freshly polished armor, clutching at the hilt with bouncing enthusiasm, unaware that wielding such a mighty sword could also mean wielding a lifetime of bad back problems and the occasional dragon-slaying headache. As the elderly knight speaks, his voice resonates with the wisdom of countless battles, the gritty knowledge one gains about armor chafing, and the inexplicable oddity of missing teeth. "Ah, my boy," he begins, "to hold this sword is to embrace a life filled with glory and pain, like a fine wine laced with foot odor." The knight pauses, bemused, watching the boy squirm with a concoction of pride and fright. Good to know it's not just their swords suffering from traumatic memories. The boy's dreams bubble over with thoughts of galloping into battle, shields raised high, as he fantasizes about tales of dashing knights, rescuing fair maidens, and earning the sweet, sweet taste of glory. But somewhere, lurking behind those grand ideals, the knight recalls the reality of chivalry. Men with filthy armor, nobility riddled with laziness, and the alluring aroma of old, stale bread drifted through the castle halls. Boys like you think that being a knight is all pageantry, but let me shatter that notion like a cheap glass of mead on a banquet table, he chuckles. It's more like being a glorified waiter armed with steak knives, except you'll be serving dirt and disappointment with a side of regret. The vivid smells surrounding them, the peasant stew wafting in from the kitchens, mingling with the earthy scent of old stone and fading sunlight, becomes a character of its own in their established drama. And the real tip, my boy? Never, and I mean never, let your armor get this bad. He gestures awkwardly at the scrapes and scratches adorning his breastplate, flying the flags of past encounters with obstinate dragons and haughty pixies. The elder knight reflects on days spent sweating in armor, while wondering, in between duels, where on earth he might find a decent bathhouse that wasn't just a glorified mud pit. Isn't that what every noble knight strived for? To remain unsullied with dignity and a griping stomach over leftover stew? He mumbles to himself. In this moment, he hands over the sword, a poignant passage not just of metal, but of countless lessons, unspoken secrets, and yes, quite a bit of uncertainty. You see, my son, with each swing of this sword, your foes will question leading you to battle, instead of treating it as a death wish. Think long and hard about which direction you're pointing it. If you wield this with confidence, they'll run away faster than a peasant offered a choice between 2 day-old turnips. The boy stares down at the sword, marveling at the ancient engravings, stories etched in battle and blood, joy and struggle, in a strange script that only the bravest dare to comprehend. Things are simpler in the realm of childhood fantasy, yet bathed in that golden sunset, The knight knows the truth. This sword may bring glory, but it's also a commitment to a life of occasional ouchies and existential dread, all while fighting for those satisfying moments when the soup is just right. As the sun sets, casting long shadows over the momentous exchange, the knight can't help but smile at the youth's enthusiasm. For in this passing of the sword, the hilarious interplay of their lives, there flickers a fire of hope that perhaps the next generation might forge a path filled with a bit more laughter and significantly fewer axe wounds. With that thought hanging delicately in the chill of the evening air, rest assured that while the sword may bind them to tales of yore, it is the laughter shared in the shadows of the castle that will endure long after the sword has gone cold. Now, dear listener, as you tuck yourself into bed, imagine a time where the weight of a sword wasn't just a physical burden, but also an invitation to adventure and absurdity. And perhaps, just perhaps, you might dream of wielding your own humorous stories in the dazzling twilight of life. Sleep tight. And now, as the long day finally fades into night, let's step back from the cold stone halls and muddy courtyards of the medieval world. Today, you survived aching joints wrapped in iron, hands numbed by cold steel, and a life where comfort was rare, warmth was earned, and laughter often came from the absurdity of enduring it all. You endured the hunger, the endless chores, the weight of duty placed on shoulders far too young. And yet, somehow, between the suffering and the struggle, there were moments of quiet humor, slipping in the mud, clanking armor, and the strange reality that even legends had to scrub floors and wait in the cold. The people of that time did not live easy lives. They woke before dawn, worked until exhaustion, and slept knowing tomorrow would likely be just as demanding. And still, they endured. Not because they were stronger than us, but because they had no other choice. There is something quietly admirable in that resilience, not heroic in the storybook sense, but human, deeply human. So as you rest here, wrapped in warmth they could only dream of, take a moment to feel grateful for soft blankets, for heated rooms, for clean water, full meals, and the luxury of rest without fear of bells, battles, or bitter stone floors beneath your knees. You don't need armor tonight. You don't need to prove anything. The world is quiet now, and you've earned your rest. Let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts soften. Imagine the fire dying down, the castle lights dimming, and the long watch finally ending. Sleep gently. You are safe, and tomorrow can wait.